Chapter 315. Spirit Gathering Array. Although it was rare, it wasn't like others hadn't seen it before. This was especially true for the newly joined honorary elders. These people were experts in their own right. They were great cultivators in the Vision Divine realm and the God Martial realm. In any sect, they would have a high status. Therefore, with their knowledge and experience, they had also seen spirit-gathering formations before. However, the spirit-gathering formations in other places were rarely able to cover the entire sect. In the vast majority of sections, the spirit-gathering array formation only covered a small hall and a courtyard. These places, they were the treasured cultivation grounds of the sect. Every month, a portion of the disciples would enter to cultivate. Moreover, it wasn't free. Even if some of the top sections, they would set up a spirit-gathering array that covered the entire sect. However, the concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi would at most increase by a few percent. Just like Yuan Zong, doubling the concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi could be said to be unique. Unless it was a sect that also had an array master, they might be able to achieve this. Other sects definitely didn't have the capital to do so. Among them, the Array Dao Grandmaster played a decisive role. Of course, there were also sects that thought of inviting an array master to set up an array. However, the price to invite such a person was definitely not light. Moreover, no sect would be at ease. An array master setting up an array in their sect was equivalent to an invisible hidden danger. If the other party left behind any hidden cards, it would be a big problem. Just as everyone was shocked by the change in Liang Mountain's spirit chi, Qin Shujian didn't stop. Instead, he continued to inscribe runes in the air. This time, what he wanted to set up was no longer a spirit-gathering array, but a defensive array. Array masters could inscribe arrays in the air, using heaven and earth spirit chi as nourishment. However, if the array had a corresponding carrier, then the strength it could display would be even stronger. Now, Qin Shujian used the entire Liang Mountain as a carrier and connected it to the veins of the earth. Then, he set up a huge defensive array. When the runes were being drawn, the earth trembled. The entire Liang Mountain seemed to have discovered a slight change. In this situation, no array master dared to spy on it. Just now, when they were inscribing the spirit-gathering formation, they had already exhausted their mental strength to the limit. He couldn't even see a complete spirit-gathering array, let alone setting up a defensive array. Time slowly passed. Compared to inscribing the spirit-gathering array, which only took him half an hour, setting up the defensive array took Qin Shujian an entire day. When the last rune fell, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. On the surface, there was no change in Liang Mountain. But in reality, as the earth veins were connected, the essence energy in the depths of the earth had already been stirred up. Together with the formation patterns, it formed a huge formation that enveloped the entire Mount Liang. However, the formation was hidden in the void and the earth. As long as he didn't touch it, there wouldn't be any problems. After setting up the formation, Qin Shujian returned to the Yuan sect. In the courtyard, Zhang Feng, Zhang Tiniu, and Niu Feng were all sitting there. The person sitting on the other side was Qin Shujian. This time, I've set up a master-level formation in Liang Mountain. It's enough to withstand the attack of a diviner. Here are 3 rune stones that can activate the formation. If a strong enemy attacks, you can use them to activate the formation. As he spoke, Qin Shujian had already taken out 3 jade stones and handed them to Zhang Feng and the other 2. Remember, the formation can't be activated easily unless you really encounter a strong enemy. We understand. Zhang Feng and the other 2 solemnly put away the jade stones. Their expressions also became serious. Then, Qin Shujian gave them a few more instructions and directly let them leave. The formation that was set up in the sect was to prevent a strong enemy from attacking. After all, although the Yuan sect was a top sect, the gap in combat strength was too serious. A defensive formation was imperative, or else, if he left the sect, he would be destroyed. That would really be too funny. The cultivation imparting elder, the law enforcement elder, and the mountain guardian elder were all above the other elders. They were also deeply trusted by Qin Shujian. Thus, the 3 jades were enough to deal with any unexpected situations. Setting up a formation really isn't an easy task. Qin Shujian shook his head as he sensed the exhaustion of his divine will. It was fine to set up a spirit-gathering formation. As a formation that attracted the spirit energy of heaven and earth, the difficulty was not high. The real difficulty was the defensive formation that was set up later. This formation, it was enough to be compared with the formation that he used to fight against the Six Desires Demon Lord. The difference was the previous formation was based on 12 Tao artifacts. The formation this time, it was based on the mountain range and earth. Both of them had the same effect. To put it bluntly, Qin Shujian was still wandering around the prominent divine stage. Although the spiritual god was powerful, there was still a limit to it. Laying down such an array would not be cheap for him at all. It was also indirectly proved. Array masters were powerful, but there was also a limit. Unless one's own realm could keep up. Or else, even if one had the ability to set up a formation, without enough spirit energy to support it, it would be difficult to continue. This rest, he rested for a full 2 days. After his spirit recovered, Qin Shujian did not stay idle. He went to the other branches and set up a smaller spirit-gathering formation, as well as a corresponding defensive formation. Even the demon vein. He treated everyone equally and set up 2 formations for the lion-tiger plain where the big green ox was. Although the demon vein was mainly made up of beasts, but it was ruled by Nyo Dali. These beasts had contributed a lot to the Yuan sect, not to mention anything else. Just as foot strength, they were quite popular. Sometimes, Qin Shujian even considered whether he should find a few powerful demonic beasts to pull the carriage, so that he would look more impressive. But after thinking about it, he gave up on this plan. Ordinary beasts pulling a carriage might not be as fast as him flying in the air. As for powerful beasts, it was not an easy task to subdue them. More importantly, demonic beasts had to be tamed and reared. If one were to seriously consider it, there were simply too many troublesome matters. At this moment, Xiao Hong had already come again. This time, Qin Shujian, on the other hand, met him at Chengwu Hall. "Steward Xiao, are you here this time for the previous matter?" Looking at Xiao Hong, Qin Shujian had a smile on his face. It was fine if the other party did not come. Since he came, then the result would definitely satisfy him. Hearing this, Xiao Hong cupped his hands and said, "This old man is also here for this matter." Speaking of this, he paused for a moment and then said in a deep voice, "In order to ask Sect Master Qin to help, the Imperial Court is willing to offer 10 spirit stones, as well as 1,000 kilograms of accompanying jade. The other 3 innate spirit items are all comparable to upper-grade spirit weapons. I wonder if Sect Master Qin is satisfied with such a reward?" Hearing this, Li Changshu said. Qin Shujian's mind was already spinning fast. 20 spirit stones, 1,000 kilograms of accompanying jade, and 5 innate spirit items. Such a reward could not be said to be not generous. Although on the market, 1 spirit stone was worth 10 million taels of silver, and the accompanying jade was worth 100,000 taels per kilogram. This was already worth 200 million taels. Not to mention, the price was one thing, but such things were simply priceless on the market. Not to mention 10 million taels. Even if the price was doubled, almost no one would sell it. So if it was judged purely by the price, it was not worthy of the status of spirit stones. As for the 3 innate spirit items of upper-grade spirit weapons, in terms of value, they were not inferior to spirit stones and accompanying jade. Generally speaking, the price offered by the Imperial Court this time was already very high. Even an ordinary large sect of the spirit domain might not be able to offer something worth 5 or 600 million taels of silver. This also let Qin Shujian know. He still underestimated his identity as a formation master. Such a price, in exchange for a chance to help. To be honest, Qin Shujian wanted to rely on this to make a fortune. However, this was just a thought. Even if he really did not care about his face and was willing to help anyone with money, there were not many forces that could bear such a price. Unless it was a big family like the Imperial Court, even those top sections. Taking out so many things at once was enough for them to feel heartache. Looking at Qin Shujian's expression, Xiao Hong said, "But according to the Imperial Court, we can only pay half of the things first. The rest needs some time to prepare, and can only be given to Sect Master Qin later. Pay half of the deposit first. After the matter was done, give the other half. Qin Shujian did not have any objections to this approach. After all, it was a transaction of several 100 million taels of silver. Even if he paid half of the deposit first, he would not lose out at all. Now, he had emptied the entire Yuan sect. Under the situation of not selling the Dao artifacts, it was estimated that he only had 200 or 300 million taels of silver. I have a request. Sect Master Qin, please speak. I need to get those 3 innate spirit items first. Okay. Xiao Hong did not hesitate and nodded. The innate spirit items will be sent to Sect Master Qin within 3 days. Anyway, the conditions had been agreed. There was no problem no matter what the other party chose. Thinking of the instructions given by Marquis Bayun on this trip, he felt assured. Subsequently, Xiao Hong said again, 7 days later, I will invite Sect Master Qin to Zongyang City. Marquis will be waiting in the Marquis Mansion. Okay, then I will take my leave first. I will be back in 3 days. Steward Xiao, take care. Goodbye. After the matter was settled, Xiao Hong did not stay for long. After sending someone to send the other party away, Qin Shujian also returned. The reason why he chose to get the innate spirit items first was that he considered that his current strength was not enough. Even if he had the means of a formation Dao Grandmaster, it would be difficult to maintain it forever. He had to solve the problem of spiritual force consumption. Either he had to break through the current realm, or he could use the Wisdom King Hellfire to calcine the spirit items and devour the fire lotuses to increase his spiritual force. After obtaining the Wisdom King Hellfire, Qin Shujian also tried to calcine other things. Unfortunately, except for the demons and the innate spirit items, the other things did not successfully nurture the fire lotuses. Chapter 316. 3 days passed. It wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. Qin Shujian had only cultivated for a short while before Xiao Hong came to visit him again. This time, after Xiao Hong had arrived, he had immediately handed over the 3 superior-grade connate spiritual items to Qin Shujian. After doing this, he didn't go back immediately. Instead, he accepted Qin Shujian's invitation and stayed in the Yuan sect for 2 days. During these 2 days, Qin Shujian was busy with other things. On the peak of Mount Liang, 3 upper-grade innate spiritual weapons floated in a row in the void. A sword, a blade, and a spear. The 3 spiritual artifacts wanted to escape. Unfortunately, they were imprisoned by the array and couldn't move at all. As for the bow of heaven and earth, it looked at the 3 innate spiritual artifacts and felt sorry for them. After following Qin Shujian for so long, it already understood what would happen to the 3 innate spiritual artifacts in the end. After all, there were originally 12 Dao artifacts. No, now there were 13. Why would he need any upper-grade spiritual artifacts? They were imprisoned by the array. Even if the bow of heaven and earth didn't want to think in that direction, it couldn't control itself. As for Qin Shujian, he looked at the 3 spiritual artifacts in front of him, and the bright King Hellfire appeared in his hand. He didn't know what the bow of heaven and earth was thinking. Of course, he wasn't interested in studying a Dao artifact. When the bright King Hellfire appeared, the bow of heaven and earth retreated a lot. Even if it was a Dao artifact now, it still felt a fatal threat in front of this flame. Even with the bow of heaven and earth's excellent knowledge, it couldn't see the origin of the bright King Hellfire. As for the 3 fays that were imprisoned in the air, they also showed signs of fear and even expressed the thought of surrendering. However, just as the bow of heaven and earth thought, for Qin Shujian now, anything that wasn't a Dao artifact wouldn't attract his attention. Even an ordinary Dao artifact might not be able to move him. Therefore, no matter how scared the 3 spiritual artifacts were, the bright King Hellfire still wrapped them up. Bright King Hellfire. There was nothing it could not burn, even if it was the void. As long as there was enough spiritual qi, it could continue burning. No matter if it was as hard as a Dao artifact, he was as strong as a demon. Anything that came into contact with the bright King Hellfire would eventually be incinerated. After the continuous advancement of the Gui Yuan ancestral canon, the Ming King Hellfire had also reached an extremely high level. At least, it was much, much stronger than when it burned the evil demons. Only a quarter of an hour had passed. The spirituality contained in the three phase completely disappeared. 3 fire lotuses floated in the void. Below it were the saber, sword, and spear that had already lost their phase status. He removed the confinement formation. The 3 items fell to the ground, and there was no longer any movement. Qin Shujian reached out and grabbed the 3 fiery lotuses, then directly absorbed them into his body. These 3 spiritual items. It was different from the Khanate phase that had just been born. After many years of growth, it had reached the level of a high-grade spiritual artifact. The spiritual energy contained within it had also reached an extremely powerful level. The fire lotus had just entered his body. Qin Shujian felt a powerful force erupting in his body. Boom! The spiritual god, which had already reached 220 feet, immediately became even stronger after being nourished by the flames. At the same time, Qin Shujian discovered that the bottleneck of the Gue Yuan ancestral cannon that he had cultivated had completely shattered under the impact of this force. The moment the bottleneck shattered, a huge spiritual deity was born. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered crazily, and the 230 feet spiritual god grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, it had already reached 250 feet. A sudden change. Naturally, it attracted the attention of others. Spiritual god, 250 feet spiritual god? Xiaohong almost thought that he had misjudged. But when he looked carefully, that 250 feet spiritual god almost blinded his eyes. If I remember correctly, 200 feet spiritual god is the peak of the prominent domain stage. 200 feet spiritual god was the peak of the prominent domain stage. Some geniuses were able to break through this limit, but they were only around 220 feet. Like now, this was the first time Xiaohong had seen a prominent domain stage cultivator with a spiritual god of 250 feet. He was sure Qin Shujian definitely hadn't broken through to the divine martial realm. After all, the illusory spiritual god that hadn't completely solidified was far from the divine martial realm. The vision came quickly. It also went quickly. When the 250 feet spiritual god dissipated, many people were still in a daze. The huge spiritual god that stood in the void kept appearing in their minds, and for a moment, they didn't know what to think. On the peak of Mount Liang, Qin Shujian had already exited from the state of breakthrough. When he looked at his attribute panel again, the Gue Yuan ancestral cannon had once again changed from the 27th level to perfection. Perfection. This meant that this cultivation technique had reached its limit, and it was impossible to take another step forward, unless it was to deduce the next level of cultivation technique. Otherwise, perfection was the limit. Subsequently, Qin Shujian looked at the bow of heaven and earth at the side. Without waiting for the other party to speak, he said, "This time, I need to go to the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. Come with me." "Yes, Sect Master." The bow of heaven and earth didn't refuse, and it didn't have the right to refuse. Subsequently, the storage ring in Qin Shujian's hand flashed, and the bow of heaven and earth and the piercing cloud arrow directly went into it. This time, they were going to the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. They were going to face the experts of the Marquis of Qinshan's side. It was necessary to bring more doctrine artifacts to protect himself. The next thing was much simpler. After giving some instructions, Qin Shujian went to Mount Liang City with Xiaohong. Then, they used the teleportation gate. It took them 2 days to arrive at a big city. When the general guarding the teleportation gate saw Xiaohong, he immediately bowed respectfully. In Zongyang City, the Marquis of Baiyun was God. People in the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion couldn't be easily offended. Although Xiaohong didn't have any position, he was a 7th-grade official in front of the Prime Minister. His identity as a steward of the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion was more useful than most people's identities. Xiaohong waved his hand slightly and then said to Qin Shujian, "Sect Master Qin, this is Zongyang City. It's worthy of being called an ancient city. It's really prosperous." Qin Shujian looked at the surroundings and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. These words, he didn't mean to flatter it. Zongyang City was where the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion was located. It had existed for many years and had become the center of the Baiyun mansion. After being maintained and operated by the Marquis of Baiyun, it had been built into the #1 city in the Baiyun mansion. Even though it was Qin Shujian's first time in Zongyang City, he had heard of its reputation before. Now that he was walking in the city, he could truly appreciate the splendor of the #1 city in the Baiyun mansion. Even if another 1,000 years were to pass, the possibility of Cold Mountain City reaching such a level was not high. Unless, since Yuan Zong was able to walk even further on his original foundation, perhaps he might be able to reach such a level. With Xiao Hong accompanying him, Qin Shujian walked around Zongyang City. Then, he followed Xiao Hong to the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion. Every region had its own Marquis of Baiyun's mansion. The Marquis of Baiyun's mansion in Zongyang City was the real Marquis mansion. However, when Qin Shujian stepped into the Marquis mansion, he was greeted by two servants who were at the peak of the true martial realm. They were at the peak of the true martial realm. If they were in the true dominion, they would be able to become a sect master. Even if they were in the spirit domain, they would have a high status. However, they were here. He was just a servant. When they saw Xiao Hong, the two servants immediately stopped and bowed respectfully. They waited until Xiao Hong were far away before they stood up and left. Along the way, Qin Shujian met many people. However, without exception, all of them had a high cultivation level. The weakest among them was at the peak of the true martial realm. There were even cultivators at the spirit martial realm. However, with his discerning ability, he was roughly able to discern that these cultivators were probably at the domain enlightened spirit god realm. As for those at the airborne realm and above, he didn't see any of them. However, even if that was the case, it was still shocking enough. Spirit god realm cultivators were just servants. As for those at the airborne realm, they were already considered the sect masters of the spirit domain. No matter where they were, they would be experts. They wouldn't be as low as servants. Of course, being a servant in the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion didn't mean that they had a low status. If the servants of the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion went outside, no one would dare to offend them. After all, it was easy to offend a servant, but it wasn't good to offend the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion. Soon, the two of them entered a main hall. Sect Master Qin, please take a seat while I inform the Marquis. It's okay. After Xiao Hong left, a servant immediately came in to serve tea. Then, the servant left respectfully. Obviously, before Xiao Hong left, he had already explained all these things to them, so they wouldn't be impolite because of this. Not long after, a person stepped into the main hall. Qin Shujian heard the commotion. When he turned his head, he immediately stood up and cupped his hands. Greetings, Marquis. It's been a long time since we last met. Sect Master Qin, you're even more elegant than before. Marquis Baiyun seemed to be in a good mood with a gentle smile on his face. When he finally sat down on the main seat, someone also came forward to serve tea. Qin Shujian also smiled faintly. Marquis, thank you for your praise. I've heard that Sect Master Qin has become an array grandmaster. I've always wanted to meet Sect Master Qin. Unfortunately, I've been busy with the affairs of the Baiyun mansion, so I haven't had the chance. Today, I've finally fulfilled a small wish of mine. While speaking, Marquis Baiyun looked at Qin Shujian with admiration in his eyes. Then, he said solemnly with a serious face. This time, I invited Sect Master Qin here for two reasons. First, I want to meet the array grandmaster of my Baiyun mansion. Second, I'm sure Sect Master Qin knows about the matter of Thousand Mountains mansion. So, I won't beat around the bush. Chapter 317. Compared to the last time they met, Marquis Qianshan spoke to Qin Shujian as a superior. This time, he obviously placed him on the same level. Qin Shujian remained calm and waited for Marquis Baiyun to continue. Sect Master Qin might not be clear about the situation in Thousand Mountains Prefecture. I'll explain it to you in case you're caught off guard. Marquis Baiyun said slowly. Now there are two forces in Thousand Mountains Prefecture. One is the Imperial Court led by Yin Saija, and the other is the rebel forces led by Gu Chongqing. They are also the original forces of Thousand Mountains Prefecture. However, according to my speculation, there should be other forces behind Gu Chongqing to support him in his resistance against the imperial court. And this force, it's most likely a demon. Demon? Qin Shujian, who had been sitting still, was stunned when he heard Marquis Baiyun's words. The word demon. It was both strange and familiar to him. Strictly speaking, the demon beasts in the Endless Mountain Range were not complete demons. However, there was a difference between demons and ordinary beasts. Those with spiritual intelligence were demons. Those without spiritual intelligence were beasts. Therefore, the demon beasts in the Endless Mountain Range generally did not have high spiritual intelligence, so they were between demons and beasts. However, no Dali in the demon vein. Instead, he was a pure demon. However, what surprised Qin Shujian was that Marquis Qianshan, Gu Chongqing, actually had the support of demons. Although Marquis Baiyun was not 100% sure, he was very clear. With Marquis Baiyun's identity, his words were basically true, even if it was a so-called high probability. In fact, it was already a 100% certainty. That's right, it's the demons. Marquis Baiyun nodded and said, all these years, the demons have been trying to regain their past glory and walk out of the Endless Mountain Range to occupy hundreds of millions of miles of territory. However, the human emperor suppressed all directions, so the demons did not dare to act rashly. Now that the human emperor's lifespan is approaching, the demons have revived and are active in the Great Zhao dynasty. In order to eliminate Gu Chongqing, other than dealing with the two array masters, you also need to prevent the demon clan from assassinating you. Speaking of which, any formation master is at least an expert of the God Martial realm or even the Heaven realm. For an existence like you who is only at the prominent divine realm, you are already a formation master. There is a high chance that he will become a target of the demons. These things. Marquis Baiyun did not hide his plan from Qin Shujian. When the other party really won a Thousand Mountains Prefecture, someone would probably tell him. At that time, there might be some misunderstanding between the two of them, so there was no need for this. Furthermore, it wasn't easy for Baiyun Manor to produce an array master. He also did not wish for the other party to die in the hands of the demon clan. For the North Cloud Manor, it was also a great loss. Speaking of which, Marquis Baiyun looked at Qin Shujian and said solemnly, therefore, the trip to Thousand Mountains Prefecture isn't 100% safe. If Sovereign Qin isn't willing to take this risk, it's not too late to back out now. At that time, I will explain to the imperial court. Marquis, you can rest assured that I will never go back on my word. How can a dignified human be afraid of the demon clan? Qin Shujian replied righteously. Back out. No way. Putting aside whether Sovereign Qin was afraid of the demon clan, there was no chance of returning the 3 superior-grade innate spiritual artifacts that he had received in advance. These 3 spiritual artifacts. In terms of value, it would cost at least hundreds of millions of taels of silver. If he took out such a large sum of money, he would probably empty the entire Yuan sect. Not to mention that he was willing to use silver to replace it. It was still a problem whether the imperial court would agree or not. At this moment, Qin Shujian could not blame Marquis Baiyun for speaking too slowly. He could only blame himself for swallowing too quickly. After all, the other party did not expect this. He would swallow the spiritual artifacts. Since there was no way to return the items, it was impossible for him not to go. Moreover, he had a 4th-grade golden lotus, the dustless immortal robe, the Thousand Mountain blood, the Chinquan bow, the cloud-piercing arrow, and other Dao artifacts. Coupled with his strength as an array grandmaster, Qin Shujian felt that his equipment was quite luxurious. Even if a heavenly being expert personally took action, he was also confident that he could protect himself. Regarding this, Marquis Baiyun looked at Qin Shujian with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. He smiled and said, "But Sovereign Qin, you can rest assured. Although there are demon clan forces in Thousand Mountains Prefecture, they may not assassinate you. Besides, it's not like the imperial court doesn't have any backup plans. This marquis is just reminding you to avoid any accidents. When will we set off? You can rest in the marquis mansion tonight. After tomorrow, I will send someone to go to Thousand Mountains Prefecture with you." Hearing this, Qin Shujian did not refuse. Then Marquis Baiyun summoned his servants and took Qin Shujian to rest. No one in the Marquis mansion dared to disobey the orders of Marquis Baiyun. The next day, in the Marquis mansion, when Qin Shujian got up from his bedroom, someone quickly brought him hot water to wash up and then brought him food. It had to be said, the facilities in the Marquis mansion were much better than the place where he, the sect master, lived in. Of course, this did not include the spirit qi of heaven and earth. Qin Shujian's original courtyard was engraved with a spirit-gathering array. The concentration of spirit qi was comparable to that of some sects' cultivation mystic realms. It was not comparable to other places. However, walking in the Marquis mansion, he also found a problem. That was in the Marquis mansion. In fact, there was also a large-scale array. Qin Shujian could only detect the traces of the array with his senses as an array master. Otherwise, if it were an ordinary array master, even an array master might not be able to detect it. From this point of view, he was basically sure. The person who laid down this array was definitely an array formation grandmaster without a doubt. After Qin Shujian finished his breakfast, an attendant came to inform him and asked him to go to the main hall. Seeing this, Qin Shujian also went with him. After turning left and right behind the attendant, the main hall that he had been to yesterday appeared in front of him. In the main hall, in addition to Marquis Baiyun, there were two other people sitting there. One was Xiaohong, the other was Su Mingyang. After the attendant led Qin Shujian into the main hall, he immediately bowed and said, "Marquis, the distinguished guest is here. You may leave." Yes. After the attendant left, Qin Shujian cupped his hands and said, "Mark, Sect Master Qin, please take a seat." "Thank you." Qin Shujian thanked him. After walking to one side and sitting down, he also cupped his hands slightly to Xiaohong and Su Mingyang and nodded his head to greet them. The two also cupped their hands in response. Marquis Baiyun said, "I wonder if Sect Master Qin is used to living in the Marquis mansion?" "Of course. This place is much better than the Yuan sect." "Haha, if there is a chance in the future, Sect Master Qin can come at any time. I welcome you." Of course. While Marquis Baiyun and Qin Shujian were chatting, Su Mingyang and Xiaohong were silent and did not interrupt. Marquis Baiyun was gentle and elegant. In fact, the rules in the Marquis mansion were very strict. The other party had exchanged pleasantries with Qin Shujian because he saw Qin Shujian as an equal. If it was someone else, he was not qualified. Then, Marquis Baiyun said seriously, "When Sect Master Qin goes to the Thousand Mountains mansion, I will let Su Mingyang follow him. I believe you should be familiar with him." Of course. During the trip to the Thousand Mountains mansion, Su Mingyang will be Sect Master Qin's personal guard in order to deal with the possible assassination of the Demon Clan. At this point, Marquis Baiyun's gaze fell on Su Mingyang. "Su Mingyang, I'm here. During the trip to the Thousand Mountains mansion, you must ensure Sect Master Qin's safety. If there is any damage, you can bring your head to me." "Yes, Marquis Baiyun." Su Mingyang accepted the order respectfully. As for Qin Shujian, it was not appropriate for him to say anything at this moment. Not long after, Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang left the Marquis mansion together and headed in the direction of the teleportation gate in Zongyang City. The Baiyun mansion was far away from the Thousand Mountains mansion. If they did not rely on the teleportation gate, they might not be able to reach the place in 1 or 2 months. As for the teleportation gate, Zongyang City was also divided into 2 places. One was the inner city, which only the people of the imperial court could use. The other was not in the inner city. As long as they paid a certain fee, they could use it for others. This time, the two of them did not go to the teleportation gate in the inner city. There was not much difference between the 2 teleportation gates. The only difference was that the teleportation gate in the inner city was larger and could transport people on a large scale. It was also for the sake of mobilizing troops in time when a war broke out. As for the other teleportation gate, each teleportation gate had a certain number of people. The two of them walked on the street. Compared to the restraint in front of Marquis Baiyun, Su Mingyang was much more relaxed now. He smiled and said, I have the opportunity to fight side by side with Sect Master Qin. When I go back, I can boast about it to others. Haha, Master Su, you're too serious. Qin Shujian smiled and said, I'm a little embarrassed that Master Su has condescended to be my guard. I'm sure many people would be willing to be the attendant of an array grandmaster. At this point, Su Mingyang's face suddenly turned solemn and he continued, however, Sect Master Qin, you must be careful. If the demon clan takes action, it will not be a simple assassination. It doesn't matter if I die, but the Baiyun mansion can't afford to lose an array grandmaster. Master Su, don't worry. I have a plan in mind. That's good. The two of them walked on the street. Although they were talking normally, the people around them could not hear anything at all. This was another function of divine thought. It could be turned into a layer of shield, isolating the sound inside and outside the shield. Zongyang City was not small. The teleportation gate in the city was located a certain distance away from the Marquis Mansion. However, the two of them were not weak. Even if they were walking normally, their strength was not ordinary. It did not take long for them to arrive at the teleportation gate. After the token of the Marquis of Baiyun's mansion appeared, the general guarding the teleportation gate immediately opened it after collecting a fee. Chapter 318. To head to the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, they had to use the teleportation gate 5 times. This was because Zongyang City was connected to big cities and the teleportation arrays were top-notch. Or else, to head to the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, the number of teleportation gates had to be doubled. Even for teleportation arrays, there were strong and weak ones. The teleportation array in Liang Mountain City was the weakest. It could only teleport within the spirit region. The key was that the spirit region was not very big. Of course, this was not because Qin Shujian's array Dao was too weak. It was because they had to set up a teleportation array. They had to set up both ends. As for connecting to the teleportation gates in the cities, they needed the corresponding coordinates. Marquis Baiyun had only given them the coordinates of the spirit region. Hence, they could only connect to the cities in the spirit region. Regarding this, Qin Shujian did not have any objections. After all, it was already a great honor for a sect to connect to the teleportation gates in the cities of the imperial court. If they wanted to expand the range, it was almost impossible. Even though Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang were powerful, they had to take a break after using the teleportation gates continuously. Hence, they took 3 days to reach the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. Yongchang City. The teleportation gate flickered and Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang appeared here. May I know where you are from? Do you have any identification with you? A middle-aged general stopped the two of them. There were soldiers around them on guard. Now, the Thousand Mountains Prefecture was in chaos. Although the teleportation gate in Yongchang City was not closed, they would closely investigate the background of those who used the teleportation gate. The reason for this was, it was to prevent rebels from sneaking in. If one could not provide any identification, they would be temporarily guarded by the imperial court. After a thorough investigation, the restrictions would be lifted. The situation before them. Su Mingyang was already prepared. He took out his identity token and handed it over. I'm Su Mingyang, a consecrator of the Marquis Baiyun. Upon hearing the words Marquis Baiyun, the middle-aged man turned solemn. He received the identity token with both hands. After checking it carefully, he returned it politely and said, So you are from the Marquis Baiyun. Pardon my rudeness. After that, he turned his gaze to Qin Shujian. Seeing this, Su Mingyang said, This is Marquis Baiyun's array grandmaster, sect leader Qin Shujian. He's here to help the army break the array and kill the enemy. Hiss. Hearing this, the middle-aged general sucked in a cold breath. Array Dao Grandmaster. This was even more shocking than the Northern Cloud Marquis Manor's honorary elder. After a short moment of shock, he immediately cupped his hands and said respectfully, So it's Sect Master Qin. My eyes are blind. I hope the Grand Master won't take offense. You're too polite. This is my identity token. Qin Shujian smiled faintly and handed over his Sect Master token. That person looked at it solemnly, then handed it back respectfully. Subsequently, then, he stepped aside. Meanwhile, The news of Qin Shujian's arrival was also secretly spread. After all, it was the appearance of a Formation Dao Grandmaster. It could be of great use, especially in the current battle situation. If there was one more Formation Dao Grandmaster, it would be enough to bring about a huge change. Sect Master Qin, let's go to Grandmaster Ming first. He's the Formation Dao Grandmaster accompanying the Imperial Army this time. I believe you two should have a lot to talk about. Grandmaster Ming? Grandmaster Ming's name is Ming Jingshan. He's the Grand Elder of the Ming family in the Central State Prefecture. He's also a Formation Dao Grandmaster. I see. Hearing this, Qin Shujian's eyes flashed with a strange light. Central State Prefecture. The Ming family. The Emperor was superior to others. Central State Prefecture was where the Imperial City was located and where the human Emperor was. For the Ming family to be able to become an aristocratic family in Central State Prefecture, their strength was evident. However, what really caught Qin Shujian's attention was the other party's identity as a Formation Dao Grandmaster. After so long, he had never seen a second Formation Dao Grandmaster. Although he had always heard that there was a Formation Dao Grandmaster somewhere, it was just a rumor. He had never seen a living person in person. As Su Mingying walked, he explained, for generations, the Ming family has entered the imperial court as an official. In this generation, there's a Formation Dao Grandmaster, Ming Jingshan, and their power is growing day by day. They're not weaker than a large sect at all. Of course, Sect Master Qin is now in the Yuan sect. As if worried that his words would be misunderstood by Qin Shujian, he added another sentence. On the other side, in the governor's mansion, Yin Saija looked at a person standing below and said in a deep voice, "You mean, the Formation Dao Grandmaster from Baiyun Mansion is already here?" Yes, Su Mingyang from the Baiyun Mansion accompanied him. Then where are they going now? According to my information, they seem to be heading towards Grandmaster Ming. Okay, you can go now. Yes. Looking at the back of the person leaving, Yin Saija's expression changed slightly. Obviously, he was also quite concerned about the arrival of Qin Shujian. But now that he had arrived at Yongchang City, he didn't come to see him, the commander-in-chief, but went to see Ming Jingshan instead. This was to make him lose face. There was no need to think about it. Yin Saija also knew that this must be Su Mingyang's idea. Behind Su Mingyang, it was Marquis Baiyun. Thus, Su Mingyang was also dissatisfied with what he had said previously. Now, he used this method to make him lose face. It was also a disguised warning. However, Yin Saija was after all a commander. He wouldn't be angry and dissatisfied because of such a small matter. Xiao Chengfeng, I thought you would be able to remain calm in the face of anything. I didn't expect you to play such tricks. It's interesting. This time, Marquis Baiyun made him feel disgusted. This made Yin Saija understand. Marquis Baiyun wasn't really a saint. He didn't have any inner emotions at all. After all, ever since Marquis Baiyun inherited the throne, everything was too dull. It was so dull that everyone almost forgot about his existence. Until some time ago, when a demon god tore the space in the demon abyss and tried to encroach on the great Zhao country, Marquis Baiyun blocked a demon god with his own strength. Only then did others notice that his strength had reached such a terrifying level. A demon god. He was at least an expert above the 7th level of the celestial being realm, and in existence of this level, he could already be called an almighty. Since Marquis Baiyun could block a demon god, there was a high chance that his strength had reached the almighty level. Such an expert. Even in the entire great Zhao country, there were only a handful of them. It was also because of this matter. Marquis Baiyun reappeared in the eyes of many people, including the Yin family where Yin Saija was, to be able to become the commander-in-chief. In addition to relying on himself, Yin Saija also had a powerful force behind him. Previously, when he asked the Baiyun Mansion to send out an array Dao Grandmaster, it was also to test the waters. However, he didn't dare to offend Marquis Baiyun too much, so it could be considered a short test. After suppressing the thoughts in his heart, Yin Saija was not in a hurry to see the array master. Anyway, there was still a long way to go. When the war started, there would naturally be a chance to see him. Moreover, after the other party saw Ming Jingshan, it was about time for him to take a look. Therefore, Yin Saija was not in a hurry at all. On the other side, Qin Shujian, led by Su Mingyang, also came to the mansion where Ming Jingshan was located. As an array master, even if he was traveling with the army, no one dared to neglect him. The mansion in front of them was specially arranged by the imperial court. In front of the mansion, Su Mingyang sent a letter to the visitor and then stated his identity. Immediately, the housekeeper politely welcomed the two of them in. At the same time, someone went to inform Ming Jingshan. An array master had come to visit. No one dared to let him wait at the door. In the main hall, as soon as the two of them sat down, someone immediately served them spirit tea. Looking at the surrounding decorations, Qin Shujian also exclaimed, "This mansion is not bad. Sect leader Qin has just arrived in Yongchang City. I believe the others who have received the news should be preparing for a mansion to stay in. It definitely won't be any worse than this." Su Mingyang smiled and said, "This was also something that had to be done. Or else, if the two were treated differently, it would definitely cause dissatisfaction. No one would be so stupid to offend an array master because of a small mansion." Only a short while had passed. Su Mingyang stopped drinking his tea and said softly, "He's here." Qin Shujian's face was also slightly solemn. In terms of strength, Su Mingyang was much stronger than him. Since the other party had sensed that someone was coming, it would not be wrong. If there was still someone coming at this time, the person who came would definitely be Ming Jingshan's master. As expected, soon, a person walked in from outside. He looked close to 70 years old and was wearing a brocade robe. His back was a little hunched, but his eyes were extremely bright. He did not look like an old person at all. When the other party stepped in, Su Mingyang instantly stood up and cupped his hands politely. Su Mingyang from Baiyun Marquis Residence greets Master Ming. Qin Shujian also stood up and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Master Ming. Both of you are too courteous." Ming Jingshan smiled first, after which, his eyes landed on Qin Shujian. He cupped his hands and returned the greeting. "This must be sect leader Qin Shujian. I hope you don't mind that I'm late." "What are you talking about, Master Ming? On the contrary, it's my sudden visit that is a little abrupt." "Haha, both of you, please take a seat." Ming Jingshan was obviously in a good mood. After saying that, he sat down on the main seat. Just as he sat down, immediately, an attendant came forward to serve tea. Ming Jingshan waved his hand to signal the other party to leave. Then, he looked at Qin Shujian and smiled. "It's the first time that I've seen such a young array master like sect leader Qin. I've only heard of your name before. Now that I've seen you today, you are indeed a genius. Compared to sect leader Qin, I'm a little ashamed." Although Ming Jingshan had a smile on his face, his expression was extremely serious. Obviously, these words were not fake at all. Chapter 319. In the midst of the conversation, occasionally, there would be some discussions about formations. Although Ming Jingshan was also a formation grandmaster, he had been immersed in this realm for a long time. His comprehension of this path was already incomparable to ordinary people. Fortunately, although Qin Shujian had just broken through, his knowledge of formation grandmaster was not inferior to the other party. Even, he was still better than him. This was the advantage of using the source of life to improve. He was at the peak when he started. Especially when it came to using special martial arts, it was even more so. As for Su Mingyang on the side, he couldn't get a word in at this time. He could only sit aside and listen silently. He was an idiot in formation. He couldn't even be considered a beginner. Now the two formation grandmasters were talking about the way of formations here, but Su Mingyang couldn't understand it all. If it were any other formation master, he should be so excited that he couldn't control himself at this moment. Unfortunately, such an opportunity was given to Su Mingyang. If it was spread out, it would probably cause many people to be jealous. As the conversation went on, Ming Jingshan looked at Qin Shujian with more and more shock in his eyes. In his heart, he gradually changed from the original mentality of a senior to a real equal, and in the end, there was a faint intention of asking for advice. After chatting like this, more than half a day passed. Su Mingyang sat a little impatiently, but Qin Shujian and Ming Jingshan were chatting happily these 2 days. The former had not communicated with people of the same realm since he had improved his formation to the Grand Master level. Although he had the strength of a top Grand Master, his limit was here. According to Qin Shujian's feeling, the current Grand Master level was definitely not the real peak. There was definitely a way to go, but to go further, either rely on the source of life to improve or communicate with other Grand Masters and try to break through the current limit. Between the two choices, he was more inclined to the latter. There was no other way. The main thing was to save the source of life. To improve to the Grand Master level, it already required 10 million source of life. Qin Shujian estimated that it would require at least 100 million, or much more than that. In this case, the source of life in his hands was very scarce. As for the latter, Ming Jingshan had been a Grand Master for so many years, and he also wanted to go further. It was a pity. The road ahead was rugged and bumpy. He hadn't even reached the peak of his current realm, let alone the next level. Therefore, being able to have the opportunity to interact with powerhouses of the same realm was extremely beneficial. Furthermore, Qin Shujian was not an ordinary array Grandmaster. In his opinion, Qin Shujian was already at the peak of the first realm of Grandmaster. He was at the peak of the first level of the Master Realm at such a young age. He thought of the news that the other party had reincarnated. Although Ming Jingshan felt relieved in his heart, there was still an unerasable shock. One had to know, if he was the reincarnation of an almighty being, it would not be easy for him to recover all his cultivation in a short period of time. Everything that Qin Shujian had shown in front of him, this might not necessarily be his true strength. In other words, his opponent was at the pinnacle level. Perhaps he had already crossed the limit of the first level of the Supreme Power Realm and entered the next level. You're saying that Grandmaster Qin hasn't left Grandmaster Ming's side? Yin Saija frowned. How long had it been? 3 days and 2 nights. The other party couldn't possibly have stayed at Mingjing Mountain. If that was the case, this was too much. He came to Yongchang City and stayed at Mingjing Mountain's place directly. He didn't even come to greet him or meet him. This was really looking down on him. However, although Yin Saija was slightly unhappy, he wasn't really angry. Looking at the people below, he said in a deep voice, "Go to Grandmaster Ming's place and find out what sect leader Qin is doing now. Then come back and report immediately." "Yes, sir." In the main hall of the mansion, 3 days had passed. The two of them were still talking nonstop, looking very excited. For cultivators of their level, not to mention 3 days, even if they didn't sleep for 3 months, they would still be full of energy. However, while Qin Shujian and Ming Jingshan were chatting happily, Su Mingyang was restless. He couldn't get a word in edgewise. He couldn't just walk away. He could only sit there and listen to the conversation that he didn't understand at all. Another half a day had passed. Ming Jingshan laughed and said, "I've benefited a lot from this discussion with sect leader Qin. It's really a blessing." "I've benefited a lot from this discussion with Grandmaster Ming as well." Qin Shujian also smiled and cupped his hands. In the short span of 3 days, the two of them discussed and compared their understanding of Array Dao. Then, they learned from each other's strengths to make up for their weaknesses. Therefore, in the span of 3 days, their gains were more useful than his years of hard work, especially Ming Jingshan. Some of the things that he had been studying for so many years had also been solved perfectly, saving him a lot of time. Some things were just like that. Whether one comprehended it or not, it might take a few years, or even a few decades. It was over. Su Mingyang came back to his senses and a smile appeared on his face. He swore. The next time something like this happened, he had to find a way to leave. Or else, he couldn't listen to their discussion at all. He couldn't just sit there and do nothing. He couldn't just sit there and do nothing. He couldn't just silently cultivate. He could understand every word they said, but he couldn't understand what they meant when they were connected together. This was also a form of torture. At this moment, after the discussion ended, Ming Jingshan looked serious and said seriously, "Sect Master Qin, you must be here to deal with the 2 Array Dao Masters on Gu Changqing's side." "That's right. Does Grandmaster Ming know anything about those 2? Qin Shujian asked in a deep voice. He didn't directly ask how Ming Jingshan was injured by them. If he said something like that, it would be embarrassing. However, Ming Jingshan didn't have too many taboos. He said bluntly, "To be honest, the array Dao masters in the cultivation world are all famous. Although I haven't seen all of them, I've definitely heard of them. As for those two array Dao grandmasters, they are extremely unfamiliar. I can't recognize them either. However, although I'm unfamiliar with them, they're not weak at all." At this point, Ming Jingshan shook his head and laughed. "I'm ashamed to say that I thought I could deal with those two array Dao masters with my own strength. Unfortunately, after a round of fighting, their strength is not below mine. When the two of them work together, even I can't defeat them. Even with Grandmaster Ming's insight, you can't see any clues?" "It's not that I don't have any information at all." Ming Jingshan shook his head. Then, he glanced at Su Mingyang and then at Qin Shujian. "I'm sure Sect Master Qin has heard about the Demon Clan before this. I've heard about it from Marquis Beiyun. Since Sect Master Qin knows, I won't beat around the bush. Those two might not be humans. Perhaps they're members of the Demon Clan. This time, there's nothing suspicious about the Demon Clan behind Gu Chongqing." Hearing that, Qin Shujian was a little silent. He could tell from Ming Jingshan's words. The fact that Marquis Qianshan was backed by the Demon Clan was no secret to the imperial court. However, what surprised him was the two array Dao masters under Gu Chongqing were actually from the Demon Clan. In response to Qin Shujian's silence, Ming Jingshan continued, "It's a heinous crime for humans to collude with the Demon Clan. Unfortunately, although we know about the power behind Gu Chongqing, we don't have any concrete evidence. Otherwise, if the crime of colluding with the Demon Clan was spread, it would at least shake the hearts of the rebels. Even if we can't subdue them without a fight, we can at least reduce their strength." Colluding with the Demon Clan. This was no longer something that could be described as a simple rebellion. To put it seriously, it was a betrayal of the human clan. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were deserted. Therefore, Ming Jingshan's words were not exaggerated at all. However, what made him feel regretful was, although the imperial court was certain that the Demon Clan was behind Gu Chongqing, the other party hid too well. Until now, they hadn't revealed any clues. As for evidence, they didn't even know where to start. As a result, although they were certain, they couldn't produce any evidence to accuse the other party. Or else, things wouldn't be so troublesome. Before I came here, I heard that the imperial court had already decided to take action against the rebels. I wonder when it will be? Qin Shujian asked. We didn't take action before because we were wary of the two array masters. Now that Sect Master Qin is here, we should take action against the rebels in a few days. However, I can't be sure of the exact time. Ming Jingshan shook his head slightly and said. After that, the two of them discussed this matter for a while. Then, Qin Shujian stood up and said, I've disturbed you for a long time. I'll take my leave first. Haha, Sect Master Qin, if you have time in the future, you can come to my place anytime. I hope to discuss the Tao of Arrays with you again. Ming Jingshan also stood up and said with a smile. Qin Shujian smiled and said, If I have the chance in the future, I'll definitely pay you a visit. I'll send you off, Sect Master Qin. Thank you for your trouble. After that, the three of them left the main hall and walked out of the mansion. Seeing that Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang had left, Ming Jingshan then turned around and went back. He didn't ask the other party to stay. This was because he knew. The other party had been in Yongchang City for so long. Yin Saija must have made proper arrangements. Moreover, he had asked Qin Shujian to stay for such a long time. He was afraid that Yin Saija might have some ideas. Therefore, Ming Jingshan also let the other party leave. Anyway, the other party was in Yongchang City. There would be a chance to meet him in the future. He's already an array grandmaster at such a young age. Before Lord Qin reincarnated, he must have been an extremely terrifying almighty. If we wait for him to fully recover his memories, the great Zhao Empire might have another grandmaster at the second realm. Ming Jingshan sighed in his heart. Second realm master, second realm. This was the level that he also desired. Chapter 320. Leaving the mansion at Mingjing Mountain. Su Mingyang said, Lord Qin, it's time for us to meet General Yin Saija. Let's go then. Qin Shujian smiled faintly. Yin Saija was the main general in the imperial court's attack on Marquis Qianshan. He was invited to help. In that case, it was impossible to avoid crossing paths with this general. Moreover, Qin Shujian knew a little about Su Mingyang's plan since he went to Mingjing Mountain first and didn't meet Yin Saija. Or rather, this wasn't Su Mingyang's idea, but Marquis Baiyun's. Thus, Marquis Baiyun didn't get along well with this general. Of course, it could be that he just didn't like him. The mansion wasn't far from Mingjing Mountain. It didn't take long for them to reach the mansion. Su Mingyang from Marquis Baiyun's mansion is here with Grandmaster Qin to meet General Yin. Please inform him. Su Mingyang revealed his identity. When introducing Qin Shujian, he didn't call him Lord Qin but Grandmaster Qin. Grandmaster Qin. The guard in front of the mansion was shocked. When he saw Qin Shujian's face, he said in a deep voice, "The general has instructed that if Grandmaster Qin is here, he can enter directly." Speaking of which, he turned his body and gestured, "Please." Hearing that, Su Mingyang and Qin Shujian looked at each other and smiled. Then, under the lead of the guards, they entered the city lord's mansion. In the main hall, there were 3 people sitting there, and one of them was Yin Saija. By the time Qin Shujian and Lu Xin arrived, an attendant had already entered to report their arrival. "General, Su Mingyang from Marquis Baiyun's mansion and Grandmaster Qin are here." "Okay, I got it." Yin Saija waved his hand and smiled at the other 2. "After waiting for so long, Grandmaster Qin is finally here. It's not easy. I heard that this Grandmaster Qin and Grandmaster Ming were discussing the Tao. Their strength is really extraordinary." A middle-aged man in a green robe, holding a folding fan, replied with a smile. Another middle-aged man, who was dressed in a suit of armor and had a rough face, also said, "It just so happens that I also want to see what this Grandmaster Qin looks like." At this moment, the 2 of them walked in from outside. Yin Saija and the other 2 turned to look at one of them. "You must be Grandmaster Qin. I've heard so much about you." The eyes of the middle-aged man in green moved slightly. Soon after, he cupped his hands and smiled. On the other side, Qin Shujian also cupped his hands in return. Yin Saija said, "Please take a seat." "Thank you." Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang both thanked him and sat down at the side. "I've long heard of Grandmaster Qin's great name. Now that I've seen you today, you're indeed extraordinary. This time, with Grandmasters Qin and Ming here, eliminating the rebels will be as easy as flipping a hand. General Yin is too polite. This Qin is just helping out from the side." Qin Shujian replied with a faint smile. At the same time, Su Mingyang's divine thought telepathy also appeared in his mind. The middle-aged man in green on the left is called Ku Yuqing. He comes from the Ku family of the Central State Prefecture. The power behind him is not small. He is one of the 3 deputy generals besides Yin Saija. The man on the right is called Wu Tai. He is also one of the deputy generals this time. Hearing this, Qin Shujian already understood in his heart. He was said to be a deputy general. In fact, that was just a relative term. Here, he was still a general. It was just that his status was slightly lower than Yin Saija's. Qin Shujian was sizing up Yin Saija and the others. Yin Saija and the others were also sizing him up. The 2 sides were talking faintly, but in fact, each of them had different thoughts in their hearts. For Yin Saija, he had already gotten Qin Shujian's information long ago, a reincarnated almighty who was recultivating. But he didn't know which almighty he was for the time being. But a cultivator who could be called the almighty. At least an expert of the 7th level of the celestial being. An existence of this level. Even if he had been reincarnated and recultivated, it wouldn't be so easy to find out. On the other side, when Qin Shujian arrived at Yongchang City, Marquis Qianshan also received the corresponding information. The Array Grandmaster from Baiyun Prefecture has already arrived at Yongchang City. As for Ming Jingshan, it is said that he has recovered from his injuries. Now that the Imperial Court has 2 Array Grandmasters, it won't be long before they officially launch their attack. Marquis Qianshan looked at the generals below and said plainly. As for Qin Shujian's interference, he had already expected it. Or else, he wouldn't have thought of ways to get rid of the other party in advance. It was a pity. Qin Shujin's defensive means were really shocking. Even the heavenly decree that contained his power didn't have any effect. Hearing Marquis Qianshan's words, most of the generals below had a slight change in expression. Soon, someone said, "Marquis, if this is the case, it will be difficult for us to gain any advantage." After all, in terms of military strength, the Great Zhao Empire's military strength in Thousand Mountains Prefecture isn't much weaker than ours. The main reason why they had the advantage now was because of the two array grandmasters. If they lost this advantage, the following battle would be difficult to fight. When the other party finished speaking, someone immediately suggested, "Why don't we make a move secretly and try to get rid of that array grandmaster? This way, we can save a lot of effort." The heavenly decree can't kill him. Unless a real heavenly being makes a move, it will be difficult to assassinate him, someone said while shaking his head. Instantly, the scene fell into an intense discussion. Marquis Qianshan sat on the main seat and didn't intend to participate in the discussion below. After a long time, he then looked at another middle-aged Confucian and said, "Military Advisor Bu, what do you think we should do next?" After he finished speaking, the scene immediately quietened down. Many people's gazes landed on that middle-aged Confucian. They didn't know much about Military Advisor Bu. Many people did not know much about him, mainly because of his sudden appearance. He had become Marquis Qianshan's right-hand man almost immediately. Under everyone's gaze, Bu Tianhua pondered for a while and then said slowly, "From what I see, the Great Zhao Empire is attacking us now and there is no turning back. That Grandmaster Qin has just arrived at Yongchang City and needs some time. In the short term, the Great Zhao Empire shouldn't attack. In this case, instead of passively defending, we should take the initiative to attack and gather all our military strength. Before the Great Zhao Empire can react, we should try our best to take down as many cities as possible and eliminate their forces. In this case, even if they have two array grandmasters, the strength of their soldiers will be greatly reduced, and it will be difficult for them to continue. Break the cauldrons and sink the boats. Fight with their backs to the river." That was the gist of it. On the surface, Thousand Mountains Prefecture's strength was weaker than the imperial court. The reason why they could hold their ground was because they had two array grandmasters. Now, this advantage was gone. They needed to use other methods to expand their advantage. As such, from Bu Tianhua's point of view, this battle was necessary. Or rather, the Great Zhao Empire would never think that they, who had been holed up, would have the guts to take the initiative to attack. In addition, Marquis Qianshan can also send a message to the various vassals and let them take this opportunity to attack and divert the attention of the imperial court. After all, if something happens to us, the main force of the imperial court will have to target them. At that time, no one will have an easy time. Speaking up to this point, Bu Tianhua stopped talking. The rest were the various expressions of the crowd. It had to be said, the other party's method was the most suitable one at the moment. After all, this battle was unavoidable. Even if they didn't take the initiative to attack, the Great Zhao Empire would send troops to attack them. At that time, they would need to face a fully prepared army. The difficulty would be on another level. However, everyone understood the logic, but not many people thought of taking the initiative to attack. Marquis Qianshan pondered for a while and nodded slightly. Military Advisor Bu's method is very promising. Let's do it this way. However, the mobilization of troops must be done secretly and must not be missed by anyone. In addition, if there are any mutants in the army, don't use them to prevent accidents. Towards the end, Marquis Qianshan added another sentence. There was no reason for it. It was just that he had a feeling in his heart that if he secretly mobilized troops and brought along mutants, there was a high chance that the Great Zhao Empire would receive the news. This time, the battle would begin. It would be a sneak attack, and then take the initiative to expand their advantage. If Yin Saija and the others received the news beforehand, then this method wouldn't be of much use. Hearing this, although the others had some doubts, they still respectfully accepted the order. Very quickly, after the crowd dispersed, Marquis Qianshan returned to the study. Bu Tianhua had been waiting there for a long time. Is there any way to find out which great being reincarnated is that formation grandmaster? It's very difficult to find out. Bu Tianhua shook his head. Every great being is difficult to calculate, and the cost of calculating is not light. After all, although there aren't many great beings, they aren't rare either. Someone who could be called a great being, their strength had already reached an earth-shattering level. It wasn't strange for such an expert to study some unorthodox methods in their long lifespan. For others, formation grandmaster. Perhaps it was very difficult to reach. But for great beings, it wasn't really impossible. When one reached that level of expert, every word and action of theirs coincided with the way of the heavens. It wasn't difficult to comprehend the way of formations. But one thing is certain, the other party must be the reincarnation of a great being. Why are you so sure? Marquis Qinshan raised an eyebrow at Bu Tianhua's confident look and asked in a low voice. Bu Tianhua said, Marquis, you may not know, but the reason why formation grandmasters can be comparable to diviner cultivators is because they can borrow and bear the power of heaven and earth. Because of this, any expert who breaks through to formation grandmaster must have their spirit merged with heaven and earth. As for what conditions are needed to merge the spirit with heaven and earth, you should know better than me. Chapter 321. Merging with Heaven and Earth. The first thing that was needed was a strong enough spirit. Only with such a spirit, only then could one not be assimilated by the aura of the world when merging with heaven and earth. And to achieve this level, one needed to at least have the spirit at the peak of the God-martial realm, or even the celestial realm. Seeing that Marquis Qinshan did not reply, Bu Tianhua smiled faintly and said, Those who are not strong enough cannot merge with heaven and earth. Therefore, every array grandmaster's strength has reached an unfathomable level. Like Qin Shujian, who is only at the prominent divine realm, he is already an array grandmaster. If his spirit had not merged with heaven and earth, how could he reach this level? Merging with heaven and earth. Extremely dangerous. This was also why any array grandmaster had the strength of a celestial realm cultivator. Because when the other party broke through to the array grandmaster level, he had already experienced a life and death ordeal. He had passed it. That was why he had such a powerful method. If he could not pass it, even a cultivator at the peak of the God-martial realm could turn their thousands of years of hard work into ashes and disappear in an instant. This was also why Bu Tianhua was so sure that Qin Shujian must be the reincarnation of a powerful person. Or else, there was no spirit martial realm cultivator in the world who could merge with heaven and earth. This was the rule. It was also the rule. If one did not reach that level, they were not qualified to merge with heaven and earth. However, Bu Tianhua would never have thought that there would be such a cheater like Qin Shujian in the world. He directly skipped the step of merging with heaven and earth and grasped the power of an array grandmaster. Marquis Qinshan's gaze fell on him and said calmly, This time, your side still needs to prepare a second hand. If this sneak attack fails, I will need to kill Yin Saija with lightning speed. Since you have spoken, my clan will make preparations. Unless it is absolutely necessary, do not expose your identity. After all, there are some things that I don't need to say in detail. You and I should know. Rest assured, Marquis, I know what to do. Bu Tianhua smiled faintly. Inside Thousand Mountains Mansion, there was a calm atmosphere. With the addition of Qin Shujian, a formation grandmaster, the imperial court was already preparing to attack the rebels. As for the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, on the other hand, they were secretly mobilizing troops and generals, preparing to strike first and gain the upper hand before the imperial court could react. Under such circumstances, both sides only had minor conflicts as usual, but they didn't make any unusual moves. On the other side, after Qin Shujian left the city lord's mansion, Yin Saija sent someone to bring him to a special residence. It was not much different from Su Mingyang's original guess. After he arrived at Yongchang City, their treatment was no different from that of Mingjing Mountain. There were also many experts guarding the mansion to prevent Marquis Qinshan from sending people to assassinate him. Of course, if the other party really wanted to send someone to assassinate him, these people wouldn't be of much use. After all, Qin Shujian had Su Mingyang, a powerful warrior in the god martial arts realm, by his side. However, whether it worked or not was one thing, but whether it was done or not was another. At night, in the pavilion behind the mansion, Qin Shujian sat alone, surrounded by a man-made pond. It was like the residence of a rich family. He didn't know who originally owned this mansion, but it couldn't have been built temporarily. However, these things weren't important to him. From the conversation with Yin Saija during the day, the imperial court should be preparing for the attack in these few days. By then, it's time to fight with the two formation grandmasters. With the help of the weak moonlight, Qin Shujian looked at the environment in front of him and thought to himself. To be honest, he hadn't fought with experts who were also formation grandmasters. To be serious, there was still a gap between him and experts like Mingjing Mountain. The most important problem was the strength of divine consciousness. Formations were about borrowing the power of heaven and earth. To draw a powerful rune, one needed to have a strong enough divine consciousness as support. With Qin Shujian's current strength, it was not a problem to set up a formation grandmaster level. But in terms of foundation, he was still inferior to others. Short-term battles were not a problem. However, if they fought to the end, it would be hard to say who would win and who would lose. Of course, in terms of other advantages, Qin Shujian didn't have any. That was, although he was also a formation grandmaster like Mingjing Mountain, in terms of comprehension of formations, he was obviously a little higher than the other party. Breaking through was the peak. This was the biggest advantage. The limit of the spirit god at the peak of the Saint Realm is 20 feet. My spirit god is now 25 feet, so it shouldn't be much weaker than the great cultivators of the god martial arts realm. This way, the gap between me and the others has been narrowed. It's just that it's not easy to make up for it completely. Qin Shujian shook his head slightly as he glanced at his life source, which was just over 4 million. The 8th level of the Spirit Martial Arts chapter of the Gue Yuan Ancestral Code already required 20 million life force sources. Then, the 9th level and even the 10th level would require even more life force sources. If this continued, without 3 to 5 months, he wouldn't have the chance to gather enough life force sources. But it could also be seen from here. The speed of increasing strength in the later stages would plummet, and it would no longer be as fast as before. Correspondingly, he believed that the speed of the player's improvement would also be severely reduced. Everyone's improvement would be slow. Then there wouldn't be a problem. As for the other 6 cultivation methods, they all showed the words that they could be improved. If all 4 million life force sources were to be thrown in, it would be enough to throw all 6 cultivation methods into the Spirit Martial Arts chapter. Once they entered the Spirit Martial Arts chapter, even if they touched the Spirit God, then, no matter how small the increase was, it would still have a certain effect. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still decided to use it. Even if I keep the life force source, it won't increase in value. Now that the war is about to begin, I might as well increase my strength first. In any case, as long as the war starts, the 4 million life force source will quickly return. With such a thought in mind, his heart moved. The 6 cultivation methods were all upgraded together. 4 million life force sources were all thrown in at once. Boom! Although the 6 cultivation methods were only in the true martial arts chapter, upgrading them together could still cause quite a stir. The spirit energy of heaven and earth gathered. The vital essence in Qin Shujian's Dantian continued to increase. When the 6 cultivation methods all entered the spirit martial arts chapter, a strong force directly surged. The spirit god in his mind seemed to be swallowing heaven and earth, setting off endless waves in it. As for the manifestation of the strange phenomenon, Qin Shujian, on the other hand, was already prepared. Thus, he set up a small defensive formation in advance to block all the anomalies. Immediately after, a huge spirit god appeared, and in the dark night, it could compete with the bright moon. The original 250 feet spirit god increased bit by bit. In the end, it stopped at a little more than 260 feet. After a long time, the spirit god returned to his body. Qin Shujian waved his hand to disperse the formation. The spirit energy of heaven and earth that had originally surged over also lost its target and suddenly retreated in all directions. The spirit god increased by more than 10 feet. My strength has increased by about 10% on the original basis. Qin Shujian noticed the changes in his body, and a smile appeared on his face. For million life force sources in exchange for a 10% increase in strength, this trade was actually not a loss at all. Even if the Guiyuan ancestral canon was deduced to the 9th level of the Spirit Martial Arts chapter, the increase in strength would probably not be much. If it was calculated like this, it would be better to pile up the life force on the lower-level cultivation methods. This matter. It had allowed Qin Shujian to find an alternative method to increase his strength as much as possible under the situation of insufficient life force sources. Of course, the most important thing was to increase his cultivation level, or else, no matter how many low-level cultivation methods were piled up, it would be very difficult to have a big change. Only by breaking through the shackles of the cultivation level and getting a transformation would be the real hard truth. And as he got stronger and stronger, if the cultivation methods level was not high enough, the increase in strength would be smaller and smaller. As for now, Su Mingyang and the others in the mansion also felt the movement and rushed over. From the surge of the spirit energy of heaven and earth to the manifestation of the spirit god, and then to the disappearance of all the strange phenomena, it was only a matter of a moment. A guard commander in the mansion looked at Qin Shujian in the pavilion and immediately cupped his hands and asked, "May I ask Grandmaster Qin, what happened just now?" "No need to make a fuss. It's just that my cultivation level had a little breakthrough." "I see." The guard commander's heart was obviously relieved. As long as it was not an assassination attempt, it was fine. Now the other party was living here. If anything happened, not only would he be buried with the other party, but the others would also be implicated. If something happened to a formation grandmaster, the loss would be too great. After letting out a sigh of relief, the guard commander said again, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." "Okay." Qin Shujian nodded. The guard cupped his hands again and then left with the others. Inside the pavilion, soon, only Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang were left. "Congratulations to Sect Master Qin for your great improvement in cultivation. You will soon reach the God martial arts realm." Su Mingyang congratulated with a smile. The commotion just now, to be honest, it had given him a shock. He had thought that the demon race would be so daring to come to Yongchang City to carry out an assassination. After seeing that Qin Shujian was fine, he felt relieved. It's just a breakthrough. It's too early to talk about the God martial arts realm. Seeing that Qin Shujian did not look too happy, Su Mingyang could not help but feel puzzled. "Is there something on your mind, Sect Master Qin?" "There's nothing on my mind." Qin Shujian shook his head and said slowly, "However, there's something that I find strange." "What is it?" "Consecrator Su, have you noticed that everything seems a little too peaceful? It's so peaceful that it's a little abnormal." "Peaceful?" Su Mingyang was puzzled. "Nothing. I just feel that it's too peaceful. After all, with the current situation in Thousand Mountains Prefecture, it shouldn't be this peaceful." "Haha, now that Gu Changqing's strength is not as strong as the Imperial Court, it's normal for him to hide." Would he dare to start a war? Chapter 322. Inside the governor's mansion, Zhu Dongyi felt inexplicably irritated, as if something bad was about to happen. Usually at this time, he should have gone to bed by now, but now, he didn't feel sleepy at all. The bedroom door opened. Zhu Dongyi looked at the empty courtyard in front of him and suddenly shouted, "Men!" as soon as he finished speaking. Immediately, an old butler came forward, bowed and asked, "May I know what orders the governor has? Did anything happen in Taishan City?" "Everything is normal in the city." "Normal?" Zhu Dongyi frowned, then waved his hand and said, "I got it. You may leave." "Yes." Looking at the back of the old butler, after receiving the news that everything was normal in Taishan City, his irritation didn't lessen at all. At his level of cultivation, Zhu Dongyi believed that there must be a reason for his current situation. "There's nothing abnormal in the city. Is there something happening outside the city?" Suddenly, Zhu Dongyi seemed to have thought of something in his mind. He froze on the spot. Something happening outside the city. What could be happening outside the city? Although Taishan City was an ordinary medium-sized city, it had become the front line against the rebels because of Marquis Qianshan's rebellion. In other words, Gu Chongqing. Zhu Dongyi was shocked when he thought of this name. Although he didn't think that Marquis Qianshan, who had been holed up, would do anything at this time. But his years of experience told him that something must have happened if he was on a whim. And, in the past few days, although Taishan City had been in conflict with Marquis Qianshan, Zhu Dongyi seemed to have noticed that something was wrong. It was too deliberate. At this time, he instinctively looked up at the sky. It was already dark. A sentence appeared in his mind. The night to kill in the dark. The wind was strong and the fire was burning. Men. At this time, Zhu Dongyi couldn't stay calm anymore. He suddenly shouted, "Sir!" The old butler came forward again, immediately summoned the generals who are resting in the city. "I want to see them in half an hour."
Yes.
And at this time, a huge shield rose up above the city, followed by flames that soared into the sky. Several terrifying auras erupted one after another. As for the old housekeeper who had not completely left, his body suddenly paused. Soon after, his head separated from his body and a pillar of blood spurted out from his wound. "You're courting death." If Zhu Dongyi still did not know what the problem was, then he would not be fit to be the city lord of Taishan City. His storage ring flickered. A ferocious saber had already appeared in his hand. He slashed at the void beside him, and a terrifying saber aura blasted out in an instant, causing the void to tremble violently. Boom! A greenish-black shield appeared out of thin air and collided with the energy saber. Then, the shield shattered. A masked man in black retreated in the air. Meanwhile, the void on his left, right, and back trembled as terrifying attacks erupted in an instant. Zhu Dongyi was obviously prepared for this. After his broadsword missed its target, he immediately drew it back to defend. Then, he swept it out. The broadsword light was like a silver moon, exuding a terrifying murderous aura. Boom! The attack was shattered. The three masked men in black stepped back. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Zhu Dongyi looked at the four men in black surrounding him and felt a chill in his heart. He did not need to guess. He knew that these people were definitely Marquis Qianshan's men. Or else, no force could send out four great cultivators in the god martial arts realm at once. Plus, the chaos in the city now. It was also a clear indication of who the culprit was. At this moment, the commotion in the city lord's mansion had attracted the attention of other experts in the mansion. When they arrived, they saw Zhu Dongyi fighting with the four men. A terrifying explosion of power had already shattered everything around them. "My lord, they're Gu Chongqing's men. Kill them," Zhu Dongyi shouted coldly. The broadsword in his hand shone like the cold light of a starry night. A powerful force covered all four men in black. Hearing this, the others did not dare to hesitate and attacked one after another. Taishan City was located in a large region. Those who could be guards in the city lord's mansion were not weak at all. Even great cultivators in the god martial arts realm. There were no less than 5 of them. Once the 5 joined the battle, Zhu Dongyi's pressure was greatly reduced. He abandoned the other 3 opponents and attacked one of them with all his strength. They were all in the god martial arts realm. There was a huge gap between them. Although the 4 men in black were in the god martial arts realm, they had just entered the god martial arts realm. Zhu Dongyi's strength had already reached an extremely terrifying level since he was the city lord of Taishan City. Once he attacked, his aura was like a rainbow. Although he had not fought much as the city lord for many years, the killing intent accumulated in the battlefield had always been there. At this moment, it exploded. In an instant, it was an earth-shattering power. Facing Zhu Dongyi's attack, the man in black retreated step by step. He did not dare to fight head-on at all. However, he retreated very quickly. Zhu Dongyi's broadsword was even faster. In the end, he had no choice but to face it head-on. Bang! After more than 20 consecutive slashes, the black-clothed man was finally unable to withstand such a terrifying power and was directly sent flying. Immediately after, Zhu Dongyi stepped into the air and slashed down with his broadsword with the power to split mountains and split the earth. Boom! The energy blade slashed out, and the man in black's body was instantly cut in two. The moment the man in black died, a person rushed out of the corpse and fled toward the distant sky. Your body is already dead. How dare a mere spirit god escape? Zhu Dongyi's eyes were cold. His body shot out like an arrow from a bow. In the next instant, he caught up from behind and slashed at the fleeing spirit god. In the end, the spirit god was shattered. A god martial arts realm cultivator had completely fallen. After killing the man in black with a single slash, Zhu Dongyi did not return to the city lord's mansion. Instead, he rose into the air. When he reached a certain height, the entire Taishan city was reflected in his eyes. In his line of sight, there were more than a dozen flames surging in the city. Many soldiers of Taishan city were fighting with others in the city. The common people closed their doors and did not go out for fear of being affected. As for the army outside the city, it was charging at the city walls on all sides. It was precisely because of this. Only then would the defensive formation in the city be triggered. Boom! A huge spirit god that was 700 feet tall appeared in the air. In an instant, it dispersed the dark clouds and revealed the bright moonlight. It's the city lord. The city lord is here. Brothers, follow me and kill. When the people of Taishan city saw the spirit god, they were relieved. When they saw the pitch-black figure standing under the spirit god, many people clearly saw the other party's specific appearance. I am Zhu Dongyi, the city lord of Taishan city. The common people in the city need not panic. The city guards will immediately kill all the intruders. In addition, as the city lord, I order the aristocratic families and various forces in the city to cooperate with the city guards to kill the intruders. Anyone who disobeys will have their 3 clans wiped out. Boom. As soon as the words came out, the strong people in the city immediately responded. The Huang family obeys. The Zhao family obeys. The Wanqing faction obeys. The Tianyi pavilion obeys. The Lin family obeys. These forces that had spoken out in response all held important positions in Taishan city. They had long been firmly tied to Taishan city. If Taishan city was gone, they would definitely not have it easy. Of course, in addition to this reason, the other reason was Zhu Dongyi's words. These forces did not think that this was a bluff. If the imperial court really looked into it, they would only have a dead end. Although the imperial court and the world of cultivators did not interfere with each other, that was because things were not that serious yet. At a critical moment like this where the city was destroyed and people were killed, the imperial court would definitely not give them too much face. Just when all the strong people in the city came out and cooperated with the city guards to attack the intruders, the 4 city walls were also under fierce attacks. Many strong people took to the air and directly bombarded the protective shield of the city walls with terrifying attacks. Terrifying and dense attacks bombarded the shield one after another. The shield of the city shook violently, but it still did not break. Seeing this, Zhu Dongyi was also relieved. As long as the shield was not broken, the strong people above the airborne realm would not have a chance to cross the city walls and directly enter the city. As for the 4 city walls, at this moment, all of the 200,000 troops stationed in Taishan city had been mobilized. The defense of Taishan city was airtight, enough to resist the enemy's attack. Furthermore, Zhu Dongyi believed that the other forces must have received the news of the rebels' attack with such momentum. It would not be long before reinforcements arrived. With the forces that the imperial court had accumulated in Thousand Mountains Prefecture, even if the rebels attacked with all of their forces, they would have nothing to fear. However, at this moment, Zhu Dongyi's only concern was Taishan city was not the only place under attack. The other cities should have been attacked as well. If the rebels had any backup plans, it was possible that they would suffer heavy losses. Immediately, the huge spirit god in the sky disappeared. Zhu Dongyi flew toward one of the city walls. 2 seals appeared on the broadsword in his hand. Before his feet even set foot on the city wall, he had already slashed out with a terrifying blade. Boom! The aura of the blade, which was dozens of feet long, directly cleared out more than half of the enemy who were trying to climb the city wall. The remaining force extended to the back. Seeing this scene, the morale of the defenders on the city wall was immediately boosted. The city lord is invincible. He will definitely kill the enemy. The city lord is here. The enemy will lose for sure. At this moment, several generals who were maintaining order on the city wall were shouting loudly to boost the morale of the people. At the same time, a deputy general came in front of Zhu Dongyi and said in a deep voice, "Sir, the enemy is now aggressive. Looking at their clothes, there is no doubt that they are rebels. What should we do next? Stay in the city and don't come out. Don't ask for credit at the moment, just don't make any mistakes. It won't be long before these rebels can't take Taishan City, and they will retreat." Zhu Dongyi looked at the dense army in front of him with a calm expression. Chapter 323. Judging from the distance between Taishan City and the other cities. At most, it would take less than 4 hours. The other cities would definitely receive the news. In Zhu Dongyi's view, it would take less than half a day for the rebels to retreat. Or else, when the reinforcements arrived, the defenders of Taishan City would charge out and attack from both sides. The enemy would definitely be defeated. However, Zhu Dongyi's heart did not relax at all. In his view, the rebels must be very confident in launching a sneak attack at this time. In the current situation, there was no hope of breaking through Taishan City. The result of this, only a large number of casualties on the other side. After all, the casualties of attacking a city were always more serious than defending it. Zhu Dongyi was very clear. As Marquis Qian Shan, he would definitely not make such a foolish decision. Since the other side had done so, he was 100% sure that they had a backup plan that he did not know about. Thinking of this, Zhu Dongyi immediately said to the deputy on the side, "Immediately go to the other 3 walls and inform the defending generals to be on guard against the enemy's sneak attack. Also, without my orders, no one is allowed to leave the city. Anyone who disobeys will be killed." This subordinate obeys. The deputy general respectfully received the order. Immediately, he turned around and hurried towards the other 3 walls. Seeing this, Zhu Dongyi's attention fell on the enemy in front of him. His brows were still tightly knitted. What kind of backup plan was it? At this time, in Marquis Qian Shan's camp, at the back of the attacking army, there were 3 people sitting on the backs of demon beasts, coldly watching the scene of the siege in front of them. I didn't think that a small Taishan city would have such a strong defense. The one who spoke was a person on the left wearing a black robe and hood. His face could not be seen clearly. His calm voice came from within. For a moment, it was impossible to hear his specific emotions. Taishan City was indeed nothing before, but now that it is the border between the Great Zhao and our side, its defense is naturally much stronger. If we can take down Taishan City, it will be enough to make that old thing Yin Saijia's heart ache for a long time. A middle-aged general in the middle, Guotong, said with a cold smile. He was one of the generals under Marquis Qian Shan. When the other party was still under the imperial court, he was already highly regarded. Now that Marquis Qian Shan was rebelling, Guotong also unwaveringly followed. According to my estimation, we only have 8 hours. If we delay any longer, Yin Saijia will definitely send reinforcements. Guotong continued. This was all thanks to the fact that Taishan City was only a medium-sized city. There was no teleportation gate in the city. Later on, this place became the front line, making Taishan City's importance stand out. However, there was one thing worth rejoicing over. At that time, Ming Jingshan happened to be injured and was fully focused on recuperating. He did not have the chance to go to Taishan City to open a teleportation gate. Otherwise, this siege would have taken a lot of effort. Of course, it was also because Taishan City did not have a teleportation gate that they chose it as one of their targets. 8 hours. The person on the right, who was also wearing a black robe and a hood, said, "The limit of the power this formation can withstand is no higher than the divine martial realm. It's easy to break the formation. Qing, are you going to do it, or should I do it myself?" The Qing he spoke of, it was the person on the left. Hearing this, Qing said faintly, "It doesn't matter which one of us makes a move. If you want to make a move, I don't mind giving way to you. If that's the case, then I won't hold back." That person laughed out loud and immediately flew off from the back of the demonic beast towards Taishan City. Can the Black Abyss emissary break the formation? Guotong looked at the person who left and asked in a deep voice, "Don't worry, the 12 emissaries are not as weak as you think. Black alone is enough to break the formation." "Then I'll wait and see." Guotong revealed a faint smile on his face, but his heart also became solemn. The 12 emissaries. He did not know where these people came from. He only knew that they were experts sent by Marquis Qianshan to attack Taishan City with the army. As for the strength of these two people, Guotong was not too sure. With his divine martial realm cultivation, he could not detect the depth of these two people at all. However, Emissary Qing Ming on the side made a solemn vow. When he saw the emissary of the Black Abyss leaving with the attitude of victory, Guotong temporarily suppressed the doubts in his heart. At the same time, the emissary of the Black Abyss had arrived in front of the formation. At this moment, there were still many people who continued to attack, trying to break the formation with brute force. However, no matter how fierce their attacks were, they still could not succeed in breaking the formation. On the city wall, Zhu Dongyi looked at the black-robed man who had just arrived, and a trace of bewilderment flashed through his eyes. In his opinion, the other party should be one of the experts sent by the enemy to break the formation. However, the previous attacks of so many experts were unable to shake the formation. At this moment, the possibility of one more person breaking the formation was very slim. However, the other party's mysterious appearance made Zhu Dongyi take note of this person. But even so, he did not go out of the city to fight. After all, Zhu Dongyi could not be sure whether there were other ambushes outside the city. Relying on the city to defend was the safest way for now. As long as the city was defended, then everything would be fine. If the city was lost, his position as city lord would be over. Outside the formation, the emissary of the Black Abyss stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the formation in front of him motionlessly. The next moment, the void trembled and collapsed. A terrifying force erupted from his body. Immediately after, the emissary of the Black Abyss struck out with his palm, directly landing on the formation. The terrifying force was released, as if the entire city was gently trembling. All the experts who felt this force looked up at the emissary of the Black Abyss outside the formation with a look of horror in their eyes. Under everyone's gaze, 1, 2, 3, and countless cracks quickly appeared on the barrier with the emissary of the Black Abyss as the center, and then spread in all directions. About a few seconds had passed. The entire barrier had become an eggshell full of cracks, as if it would shatter at any time. Unable to withstand a single blow, the emissary of the Black Abyss let out a disdainful sneer from under his hood. Immediately after, his palm exerted more force, and the entire formation shattered with a loud bang under Zhu Dongyi's shocked gaze. The formation shattered. This meant that Taishan City had lost its greatest protective barrier. Moreover, to break the formation with one blow, even an expert at the peak of the divine martial realm might not be able to do so. Therefore, when he saw the figure in the air, Zhu Dongyi's mind came up with a thought that even he could not believe. A celestial. Could it be that the rebels even sent out a celestial to attack Taishan City this time? Moreover, other than Gu Chongqing, there should not be a second celestial in the rebels' forces. As for whether or not the black-hooded expert in the air was Gu Chongqing, Zhu Dongyi knew very well that the other party was definitely not the former Marquis Qianshan. He did not have time to be shocked. The moment the barrier shattered, many experts above the airborne realm on the rebels' side directly crossed the city walls and killed their way into Taishan City. Suddenly, fierce fighting broke out in the city. Seeing this, Zhu Dongyi's heart sank, but he still did not despair. Instead, he directly ordered all cultivators above the airborne realm, kill the enemy experts in the city with all your might. The rest of you guard the city walls and stop the enemy. Do not let anyone in. Today, if the city lives, we live. If the city dies, we die. As long as we block the enemy's attack and wait for the Imperial Army to come to our aid, everyone will be rewarded. Those with outstanding achievements will be promoted and bring honor to their families. Zhu Dongyi's words were directly transmitted through divine telekinesis. In an instant, it spread throughout the entire Taishan City. Originally, the morale of the defenders fell because the formation was broken. At this moment, after hearing this at the moment, the confidence in their hearts was restored. There were even people who shouted at the top of their lungs, "If the city lives, we live. If the city dies, we die. If the city lives, we live. If the city dies, we die. Kill." At this moment, the emotions of most people were stirred up. For them, joining the Imperial Army as soldiers was to kill the enemy and gain merit. They had the opportunity to be promoted and bring honor to their families. When the time came, they would enjoy a life of glory and wealth. As for the possibility of losing their lives, in their view, this was no longer the most important thing. After all, if they were afraid of death, they would not have joined the army. Therefore, when the formation was broken, the strength of the defenders of Taishan City did not weaken. Instead, it became stronger. As for the envoy of the Black Abyss, who was floating in the air, he did not make a move again. With his experience, naturally, he could see that with the current strength of Taishan City, it was impossible to resist the attack of the army. Just those experts who had killed their way into the city, it was enough to be the last force to crush Taishan City. As for the process, whether more people would die or not, it had nothing to do with him. In the eyes of the envoy of the Black Abyss, whether the people of Taishan City or his own camp lived or died, it had nothing to do with him. If it were not for the cooperation with Marquis Qianshan, in his opinion, it would be better if both sides died. Therefore, after breaking the formation, the envoy of the Black Abyss turned around and went back. Zhu Dongyi, who had been guarding against the attack of the Black Abyss, did not dare to relax at all. Seeing this, he felt relieved. The huge pressure on his body disappeared. It could not be helped. An expert who seemed to be a diviner was standing there. It was enough to give people a strong pressure. If the other party really wanted to attack, in terms of experts, no one in Taishan City would be a match. Unless they mobilized the army and formed a military formation, they might have the power to fight. But in the current situation, it was not easy to form a military formation. Although Zhu Dongyi did not know why the other party wanted to leave, he did not care so much. Without the pressure of the envoy of the Black Abyss, he immediately set his eyes on Taishan City. In the next second, he had already left the city wall and killed an enemy expert in the god martial arts realm in the city. He had to defend Taishan City. In addition to intercepting the attack of the rebel army, the enemy experts in the city must also be dealt with. Or else, if he allowed the enemy to continue killing like this, it would not be long before the defense system of Taishan City was completely broken. When that time came, there would be no way to save the situation. Chapter 324. Seeing the return of the envoys from the Black Abyss, displeasure flashed across Guo Tong's eyes. Given the other party's strength, after breaking the formation, they should have immediately killed Zhu Dongyi and swept away the experts in Taishan City, giving them an advantage in taking over Taishan City. But they returned immediately after breaking the formation. From beginning to end, it was only one move. Although this kind of strength shocked Guotong, it also made him very dissatisfied. But the other party was not part of the army. When Marquis Qianshan sent them to follow the army, he understood that although he was the commander of the army, he could not order them around. "I admire the strength of the envoys from the Black Abyss," Guotong said first, then said, "Please help me hold the line. I will go and meet the Lord of Taishan City." After he finished speaking, he did not wait for the two to reply. He directly left the demon's back and headed towards Taishan City. This General Guo seems to be dissatisfied. So what if he's dissatisfied? If it wasn't for that person, he would be nothing. I wonder how the other cities are doing. Don't worry. The 12 envoys are enough to sweep them all, the envoys from the Black Abyss said proudly, when Dongfang vomited white from his belly. This news had already shocked the entire Thousand Mountains prefecture. Bang! A palm landed heavily, and the armrest instantly turned to dust. Yin Saija stood up from his seat. His eyes were cold. 6 hours. In just 6 hours, we have lost 11 cities and more than 1 million soldiers. We even lost 15 god martial realm cultivators. But you only found out about this now. Is the imperial court feeding you for nothing? You didn't even notice when Gu Changqing mobilized more than 1 million soldiers. Is this how a general of the great Zhao dynasty is supposed to be? The more he spoke, the angrier he became. In the end, Yin Saijia's voice turned into a roar. The losses this time. It was not a serious injury, but it was definitely not good. Not many of the million soldiers died at Marquis Qinshan's hands. Most of them were forced to surrender and become part of the rebel forces. Under this situation, the imperial court suffered even more. Other than that, the death of 15 god martial realm cultivators pained Yin Saijia even more. The god martial arts realm was different from other realms. It would take far too much time to nurture a great cultivator of the god martial realm. Such an expert. Every one of them was worthy of the imperial court's attention. Many people had ugly expressions when they heard Yin Saijia's roar. However, they snorted disdainfully in their hearts. They didn't receive any news. The other party didn't receive any news either. Now that Gu Chongqing had taken a big bite out of them, no one could escape the responsibility. However, after all, Yin Saijia was the main commander this time. If the other party wanted to vent his anger by shirking responsibility, they would just listen and let it pass. After a while, Yin Saijia returned to his seat. He looked at Qiyuqing and said, Gu Chongqing made the first move. What do you think, General Ku? Qiyuqing looked at Yin Saijia. Gu Chongqing must have received news of Sect Master Qin's arrival. He wants to strike first. Qiyuqing glanced at Qin Shujian, who was sitting on the side. On the other hand, the other party sat there motionlessly, not reacting to his words at all. Although we lost 11 cities this time and lost a lot of strength, we didn't really suffer any serious injuries. Our elite forces are still unaffected. Now that Gu Chongqing has just lost 11 cities, it must not be completely stable. I suggest we send troops immediately and take back all the lost cities in one fell swoop. At the same time, Gu Chongqing's real trump card is the 2 array masters. Therefore, I also hope that Grandmaster Qin and Grandmaster Ming can take action and break the Heaven and Earth Lock formation in Thousand Mountains Prefecture in one fell swoop. Qiyuqing said in a deep voice. Previously, Gu Chongqing had sent people to set up the Heaven and Earth Lock formation in half of Thousand Mountains Prefecture. As a result, the area inside the formation was full of rebels. It was like an iron bucket. It also made the imperial court's army advance. It was easy to fall into a state of isolation and helplessness. Therefore, in his opinion, it was imperative to break the formation. After he finished speaking, Ming Jingshan shook his head and said, back then, in order to set up the heaven-sealing earth-locking formation, Gu Chongqing spent an unknown amount of time to set up this formation that encompasses half of the prefecture. Now, if we want to simply break the formation, we will need quite some time. Based on the current situation, Gu Chongqing won't give us so much time to break the formation step by step. Not to mention, the 2 array masters are still here. They won't just let us break the formation. It was not easy to break the formation. Others might know how powerful the Heaven and Earth Lock formation was, but only array masters like Ming Jingshan really knew what kind of methods were needed to set up such a large formation. It was difficult to set up a formation. It was even more difficult to break the formation. Even if Qin Shujian joined forces, he was still not confident. At this moment, Yin Saijia said, we can put the matter of breaking the formation aside for now. What we need to do now is just as General Ku said. Gu Chongqing has just taken down 11 cities. The situation in the cities is definitely unstable. Therefore, I suggest that we immediately mobilize the troops and horses to take back all the lost cities. In addition, issue the corresponding missions to the mutants in the territory and let them follow the army. When the time comes, our army can also reduce some casualties. After all, the mutants would not die. When the time comes, give them some benefits and let them charge and break through the enemy lines. They could just be meat targets. Yin Saijia did not think of relying on the mutants to win. What he wanted to do, he just wanted the mutants to replace the casualties of the original soldiers. The real charge and break through the enemy lines still depended on his own people to conquer the cities. On the other side, when Qin Shujian heard Yin Saijia's words, he also turned his head and looked at the other party. In the other party's words, he already had a good understanding of the players. He was also digging into the advantages of this race. This also proved that the players were slowly integrating into this world and were beginning to be valued by various forces. We will follow your orders. The other generals also cupped their hands and accepted the order. After that, Yin Saija looked at Qin Shujian and Ming Jingshan and said, "This time, I will have to trouble the two of you to follow the army." Hearing this, Qin Shujian and Ming Jingshan looked at each other and cupped their hands and replied, "We will follow your orders." In the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, the imperial court was led by Yin Saija. The other party's words were absolute orders. No one could easily disobey. Otherwise, it would be a great crime of rebellion. The other party also had the right to act first and report later. Therefore, when Yin Saija was exercising his rights as the main general, even Ming Jingshan, who had a strong background and was an array grandmaster, could not disobey the other party's words. Otherwise, once the news spread, even the Ming family, they would be affected. After the order was given, with Yongchang City as the center, all the cities received the same order. Then, they directly deployed their troops and sent them to the lost cities. The expected war did not break out. When the imperial court's army arrived, Marquis Qianshan's army had already retreated, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Most of the valuable things in the city had been plundered, except for the civilians. The 11 cities had become an empty city. Of course, the reason why they did not touch the civilians was not because Gu Chongqing was soft-hearted. It was because the other party understood that they could not touch the civilians easily if they massacred the entire city. If their tyrannical reputation spread, the civilians would definitely be fearful. It would not be good for their rule. Once they attacked other cities, they would definitely be met with resistance. Except for that, in Gu Chongqing's eyes, the Thousand Mountains Prefecture was still his territory. Even the cities that had fallen into the hands of the imperial court should belong to him. If they massacred the civilians in the future, when he took over the entire Thousand Mountains Prefecture, half of the prefecture would be dead. It was like killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. Gu Chongqing would not do that. Everyone has contributed greatly to the capture of the 11 cities. However, now that the war has not ended, I will record your contributions for now. When I take over the Thousand Mountains Prefecture in the future, I will definitely reward you according to your contributions. Marquis Qianshan had a smile on his face. Obviously, he was in a good mood. They had captured the 11 cities in one night. Not only had they obtained hundreds of thousands of prisoners of war, but they had also plundered a large amount of silver from the forces in the cities. These gains, soon, they could be converted into their own strength. Under this situation, one side was weakened while the other side was strengthened. The gap between him and the imperial court had shrunk by a lot. Bu Tianhua cupped his hands and said, "Marquis, we have abandoned the 11 cities. Now, Yin Saija must have sent people to take over. Now, the people in the 11 cities are not stable. The original defenders have all died. Under such circumstances, the other party is more likely to consolidate the 11 cities first. I suggest that we attack the 11 cities again tonight. Yin Saija will not expect that we will immediately go back after abandoning the cities." At this point, a cruel smile appeared on Bu Tianhua's face. "When that time comes, our gains will not be much less than today's." After he finished speaking, immediately, someone agreed. Military advisor Bu is right. Yin Saija will not expect us to go back. When we kill the defenders in the cities, the Great Zhao's power will be further weakened. When that time comes, even if they don't attack us, we can completely destroy them. Last night, Yin Saija lost 1 million soldiers. Although our army suffered some losses, we didn't suffer many losses because of the captives. If we come again this time, Great Zhao's strength in Thousand Mountains Prefecture will definitely be damaged. That's right. I agree with military advisor Bu's suggestion. Looking at the many generals below who agreed, Marquis Qianshan pondered. It had to be said. Bu Tianhua's words were indeed the best solution. According to the intelligence he had obtained, Yin Saija had at most 20 million soldiers. If they went back and forth like this, the other party would lose at least 10% of their strength. One should not think that 10% of their strength was not much. Compared to the other party's overall strength, this was the loss of 2 million soldiers. Furthermore, His own strength was not much different from Yin Saijia's. Now that the distance had been shortened, it was enough to meet the other party head-on. Chapter 325. Taishan City. Compared to yesterday, the city was much more desolate at this moment. The city lord, Zhu Dongyi, had died in battle. All the aristocratic families and forces in the city had been uprooted and almost looted. The only ones who didn't lose anything were the people in the city. However, it wasn't that they didn't lose anything. The chaotic battle at night. The aftermath of a battle between powerhouses could easily destroy everything. Many innocent civilians lost their lives in the aftermath of the explosion. But it was inevitable. Besides that, more than half of Taishan City was still intact. On the city wall, Qin Shujian could still see the indelible traces left behind by the fierce battle around him. Corpses could be refreshed. Blood could also disappear. But the traces left behind by the battle couldn't be erased. Just by looking at the traces around him, he knew what had happened here. Taishan City only destroyed the aristocratic families and the resistance forces of the imperial court. They didn't do anything to the people. Most of the buildings in the city are intact. He thinks he can take back Taishan City sooner or later, so he doesn't want to destroy his own things. Su Mingyang stood on the city wall and looked down. His eyes were a little cold. Isn't he being a little too confident? Gu Chongqing must have used a lot of power to be able to take over 11 cities in one night. If I'm not mistaken, there should be a great city-protecting array in Taishan City. However, I can tell from the broken array texts. The Great City Defense Array of Taishan City was broken by someone. Qin Shujian looked at the sky above the city. There should have been nothing there at all. But in his eyes, he could see some broken runes left. Formation in the void. The person who could set up the Great City Defense Array was at least at the level of an array master. And from the broken runes that hadn't completely dissipated, the person who set up the Great City Defense Array was not at the level of a master. But this was normal. After all, before Marquis Qinshan's rebellion, Taishan City was just an ordinary city. It was impossible to send an array master to the city to set up an array. Basically, it was enough for an array master to do it. However, even an array set up by an array master was not ordinary. Even a god martial arts realm cultivator couldn't break it so easily. But judging from the broken array formation, it was clear that the array formation was broken. Qin Shujian, on the other hand, felt a violent force. This was the innate sensitivity of a formation Dao Grandmaster. It allowed him to deduce what had happened when the formation was in perfect condition from the traces left behind by the broken formation. When Su Mingyang heard that, he said in a deep voice, "Sect Master Qin, are you saying that a celestial realm powerhouse broke the formation and caused the deaths of Taishan City?" We can't say for sure if it was a heavenly being, but Qin Shujian shook his head and said, Gu Chongqing must have used a lot of power to destroy the 11 cities so quickly. Moreover, instead of guessing on our own, we might as well ask someone. Perhaps the answer will be even simpler. Ask someone? Su Mingyang was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted. Sect Master Qin, are you talking about mutants? Inhumans are immortal, and they are everywhere. When the city is breached, normal civilians won't be able to escape. But for Inhumans, it's the exact opposite. As long as we issue a quest, there should be Inhumans who will give us the answer. As Qin Shujian spoke, he turned around and walked down the city wall. It was easy to find Inhumans. They were all over the streets. According to his words, Su Mingyang returned to the Castellan's mansion and asked someone to issue a quest as the acting Castellan. It didn't take long. A player came to submit the quest. Black robe and hood? Can't see the face? In the Castellan's mansion, everyone looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. They didn't know the identity of the other party. But to break the great defensive formation of Taishan City by himself, even a powerhouse at the peak of the god martial arts realm would find it difficult to do so. Wu Tai said in a deep voice, to be able to break the great defensive formation so easily, he must be at least a half-step celestial being or even a celestial being. Apart from Gu Chongqing, the rebels don't have such a powerhouse. Speaking of this, He glanced at everyone and a cold light appeared in his eyes. If I'm not wrong, it must be the force behind Gu Chongqing. General Wu, are you talking about the Demon Clan? A deputy general asked. Gu Chongqing's collusion with the Demon Clan was no secret to them. Or rather, these things had been publicized long ago. But because of the lack of evidence, it didn't cause much of a stir. However, to the people from the imperial court, everyone was sure that Gu Chongqing had the Demon Clan behind him. Gu Chongqing didn't have such a powerhouse under his command. Then what about the Demon Clan? The Demon Clan was once an overlord. Even if they were now hiding in the Endless Mountains, they still had a strong foundation. It could even be said that, because the other party had been dormant for so many years, no one knew how much strength they had accumulated. But one thing was for sure, the Demon Clan's strength. They couldn't be underestimated. When the Demon Clan was mentioned, even Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang's eyes flashed. The former was an array master and was the most advantageous person to rely on for this trip. Although the latter didn't have an official position, he was a consecrator of the Marquis Baiyun's mansion. Now, he could barely represent the Marquis Baiyun's side. So, now that the Castellan's mansion was holding a meeting, both of them were qualified to participate. It's definitely the Demon Clan. Wu Tai's expression was solemn as he said coldly, "These Demon Clan remnants didn't stay in the Endless Mountains. They came out in vain to encroach on the Great Zhao's territory. If there's a chance, I will lead the army into the Endless Mountains and wipe out all these damn things." As for Gu Chongqing, as a subject of the Great Zhao, he rebelled. That is disloyal. As a human, he colluded with the Yao. That is unrighteous. Such disloyal and unrighteous people should be killed. Hearing this, everyone else was silent. After all, they wanted to enjoy their mouths. They couldn't really go up and cause trouble. Yin Saija wasn't here. At this moment, Wu Tai's position in the Taishan City Army was the highest. No one would be so free as to cause trouble for themselves. Also, no one said that it was a crime to enjoy their mouths. As for Wu Tai's words, they just listened casually and didn't take it seriously. After all, the Endless Mountains was the Demon Clan's base camp. They couldn't be killed just because they wanted to. If they really angered the Demon Clan, not to mention 1,000,000 soldiers, even if they sent in dozens of times, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Or else, the imperial court would have acted against the Demon Clan all these years. It was because the Endless Mountains were too big. Some people had guessed. The vastness of the Endless Mountains might be comparable to the Great Zhao's hundreds of millions of miles. Of course, many people scoffed at this rumor. In their view, there was no place that could compare to the vastness of the Great Zhao. The Endless Mountains were just a little mysterious. But in terms of vastness, it definitely couldn't compare to the Great Zhao. Or else, for thousands of years, why did the Demon Clan want to take back their former territory? As for strength, there was no need to talk about it. One side ruled hundreds of millions of miles of territory. One side holed up and didn't come out. One could tell who was stronger and who was weaker. After that, Wu Tai's anger faded a lot. He looked at everyone and said in a low voice, "Now that the rebels have retreated from Taishan City, what do you think?" The rebels must have retreated because they know that our army is coming. They know that they can't rely on Taishan City to resist our army's attack, so they led their troops to retreat. I suggest that we rest and reorganize in Taishan City for the night. Now that Zhu Dongyi has died in battle, the people of Taishan City are in a panic. We can take this opportunity to stabilize the people's hearts and then plan our next step against the rebels. When Wu Tai finished speaking, someone immediately suggested. This was the safest way at the moment. They could rely on Taishan City to rest and reorganize for a short time. Then, they could use this opportunity to stabilize the restless people of Taishan City. Then, the army would use Taishan City as a supply base to launch a further attack against the rebels. So, when this person spoke, no one in the main hall objected. After a long time, Wu Tai nodded and said, "This is a good idea, but..." He paused and turned to look at Qin Shujian, who was sitting on the side. He said in a low voice, "Now that Taishan City's city protection formation is broken, I hope that Grandmaster Qin can repair it to prevent other situations from happening." "No problem. Just leave this matter to me." Qin Shujian nodded and said, setting up the city protection formation. For him, this was not an easy task. After all, in terms of area, Taishan City was much larger than Yuanzhong. If he had not advanced to the spiritual deity level, he might not have been able to set up such a large formation. Or rather, he could not do it in a short time. After all, the larger the formation, the more time it would take to set it up. Correspondingly, it would consume less divine consciousness. And vice versa. If he wanted to set up a formation that covered the entire city in a short time, it would consume a lot of divine consciousness. However, when his spiritual deity level reached 260 feet, Qin Shujian felt that he would not be weaker than some experts who had just entered the god martial arts realm in terms of divine consciousness strength alone. Therefore, he was very confident in setting up a formation that covered the entire city. After getting Qin Shujian's consent, Wu Tai then looked at the others and ordered, from today onwards, the entire city will be under martial law. In addition, send out sentries outside the city. A team of people needs to be stationed every 5 miles. Then, every half an hour, send out a signal to ensure that there are no abnormalities. Lord Wu, are you afraid that the rebels will come again? It's better to be safe than sorry. No one said that the rebels would not come back after abandoning the city. Military affairs are not child's play. All is fair in war. Just do as I say. Wu Tai looked at the person who spoke and said in a cold and indifferent tone. Hearing this, the person, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Then, together with the others, they all bowed and accepted the order. Yes, sir. The only ones who did not move. It was Qin Shujian and Su Mingyang. Chapter 326. Wu Tai was not sure if Gu Chongqing would turn back, but his years of experience told him there was no such thing as too much deception in war. It was applicable at all times. Also, anything that could happen, even if there was only a sliver of chance, could not be ignored. Other than the great Zhao ruling the world, there were no other forces. When the demon race was still around, there were many large and small countries in the world. But as the demon race retreated, the great Zhao under the lead of the human emperor swept through the world and finally settled the world. But, even so, it did not mean that the other small countries would all submit or perish. In the years when the great Zhao settled the world, the army was still fighting in the north and south. It was only in the recent 100 years that all the forces were wiped out. The great Zhao was the only voice left in the world. And when they were fighting the other countries, Wu Tai was one of the generals. He had a much better understanding of these military tactics than the others. Or else, he was not qualified to be one of the generals second only to Yin Caizhe. On the other side, Qin Shujian was already preparing to set up the array. For an array grandmaster, the simplest and most energy-consuming way to set up the array was to carve the array in the air. With a wave of his hand, his divine consciousness would be consumed like a tide, and he would set up a large array. But this way, first, it would consume too much energy. Secondly, even with his divine will, he couldn't cover an entire city. So, Qin Shujian used the second way to set up the array. That was the array disk. He placed the array disk at every key point in the city and then connected them to form a large array. This way of setting up the array, it would consume relatively less energy. The power of the array would not decrease at all. The only flaw was, casting the array disk required a lot of materials. This was not a big problem for Qin Shujian. After all, Wu Tai was the one who asked to set up the array. He could not just ask him to set up a large array out of thin air. So the corresponding materials were naturally provided by the imperial court. In the mansion, Qin Shujian left and right, leaving only Su Mingyang by his side. Then he took out the materials that Wu Tai had sent and lit the bright king hellfire in the air. After throwing the materials in, he refined them with all his might. The moment the bright king hellfire appeared, Su Mingyang involuntarily took 2 steps back. Looking at the flames burning in the air, an intense fear surfaced in his eyes. Just now, when the bright king hellfire appeared, he felt his divine soul tremble. This kind of threat, it made Su Mingyang feel as if he had met his natural enemy. What kind of flame is this? Looking at the wise King Hellfire, a hint of doubt flashed across his fearful eyes. Even with his experience, he could not tell the origin of the wise King Hellfire. In Su Mingyang's memory, there was no flame that could threaten a god martial realm cultivator. But that feeling just now, however, he knew in his heart that this was definitely not an illusion. In other words, if he was infected by the Wisdom King karmic fire, he wouldn't have an easy time even if he was a god martial realm cultivator. Regarding Su Mingyang's actions, Qin Shujian did not bother about it either. His entire focus was on the bright King Hellfire in front of him. He wanted to obtain the disc that held the formation. In addition to the materials, he also needed to use casting methods to cast the disc. Then, he needed to inscribe the formation on the disc. Generally, experts who were proficient in formations. However, they might not necessarily be proficient in casting. Therefore, not every array master could use the array disc. However, these problems were not difficult for Qin Shujian, who was a master of two paths. As the cultivation of the Guiyuan ancestral classic continued, the power of the bright King Hellfire also became stronger and stronger. In less than half an hour, the materials that were calcined in the bright King Hellfire had all melted. Immediately after, they saw Qin Shujian's hands forming runes. With the control of his true essence and divine thought, the liquefied materials were cut apart. Then, he used the runes to condense them into square disc. Rumble. Thunderclouds rolled in the sky. In the next moment, then, a bolt of lightning struck down and landed on the array disc. A sudden change. It immediately attracted the attention of others. After all, it was difficult for lightning to strike down from the sky to cause panic in Taishan City, which had just been affected by the war. I'm casting the spiritual weapon. No one is to disturb me. Qin Shujian's quintessential origin chi was constantly controlling the array disc. As the lightning struck, runes entered the array disc. At the same time, he diverted part of his mind and said, hearing this, Su Mingyang immediately knew what to do. After Su Mingyang left, Qin Shujian, on the other hand, was fully focused on the disc array, allowing the lightning to forge it. The runes that were added to the disc array were slowly integrated into it. The lightning came quickly. It also went quickly. After the 18 bolts of lightning fell, the thunderclouds in the sky dissipated. There were only 18 matrix discs left in the air. As Qin Shujian waved his hand, all 18 matrix discs flew towards him. Just as the thunderclouds dissipated, Su Mingyang also came back. When he saw the 18 disc arrays, he was obviously confused and couldn't help but ask, Sect Master Qin, what is this? This is a disc array. It's used to carry the array. Qin Shujian directly floated the 18 disc arrays in front of him. He was obviously in a good mood. He said with a smile, any one of these 18 disc arrays is a low-grade spiritual weapon. If someone who is proficient in arrays combines the 18 disc arrays into an array, its power is comparable to a high-grade spiritual weapon. A high-grade spiritual weapon. Looking at the 18 disc arrays in front of him, Su Mingyang was also quite shocked. In such a short time, Qin Shujian had cast 18 spiritual weapons. After combining them, the power was comparable to a high-grade spiritual weapon. He had never heard of or seen such a method. However, when he thought of Qin Shujian's identity as a forging grandmaster, he felt relieved. Or, this was the method of a forging grandmaster. Qin Shujian didn't explain too much about Su Mingyang's shock. Although the 18 disc arrays were comparable to a high-grade spiritual weapon, it was only in the hands of an array master. Once an array master controlled the disc arrays, even a low-grade array master could exert the power of a high-grade spiritual weapon, which was equivalent to having a high-grade spiritual weapon. However, as an existence that carried the array, the disc arrays needed to exist as the foundation of the array. Then, they could be combined and arranged to form a complete array. Compared to an array, spirit stones and associated jade stones could carry a complete grandmaster array directly. The user didn't need to know any array methods. It was enough to know how to activate the array. Ignoring Su Mingyang's shock, as Qin Shujian's mind fell, the 18 disc arrays were neatly arranged on the ground. Immediately, he reached out and took a disc array. As his true essence and divine thoughts surged, runes condensed from the void and fell on the disc array. Every time a rune fell, the runes would fall. The disc array trembled slightly. The engraved lines on it seemed to be alive, gradually twisting and spiraling like silver snakes. Half an hour passed. Qin Shujian put down one disc array and then took the second disc array. Like a gourd, he engraved runes on it. This kind of engraving was not endless. Every time he engraved 6 disc arrays, Qin Shujian would stop for a while. Then, he took out a vitality pill and swallowed it. After recovering his divine thought, he began to engrave the remaining disc arrays. The vitality pill was divided into 7 and 8 levels. The different levels represented different effects. And the vitality pill that he swallowed, naturally, it was the 8th level vitality pill. As for the source of the pill, it was also provided by the imperial court. However, after obtaining the vitality pill this time, Qin Shujian remembered something. Ever since he obtained the celestial blue alchemy book, even if he raised his alchemy level to the Grandmaster level, he had not refined a single pill. The reason why he did not do it, it was because he thought that swallowing pills would not have any effect on his body. With the support of the Domain Lord title, cultivation was much faster than swallowing pills. But now that he had obtained the vitality pill, Qin Shujian suddenly reacted. That's right. He did not need to swallow pills to cultivate, but restorative pills still had a lot of effect on his body. Especially similar to the vitality pill, this kind of pill that could restore divine thought and replenish divine thought was even more obvious. With his array Dao Grandmaster cultivation, every time he set up an array, he would need to consume a lot of divine thought. If he had the vitality pill in hand, then the problem of divine thought exhaustion could be solved to a large extent. Just that, previously, he had not exhausted his divine thought a few times. In addition, he was not too interested in alchemy, so Qin Shujian almost forgot his identity as a Grandmaster. It seems that after this matter, I have to start refining some pills. The 8th level vitality pill, with my current Grandmaster level, is enough to refine. After making up his mind, Qin Shujian focused his mind and began to engrave the remaining disc arrays. Half a day passed. The 18 disc arrays were finally completed. In the empty space of the mansion, the 18 disc arrays were suspended in the air. There was a dense light on each disc, faintly as if they had been refined into a whole. Then, Qin Shujian directly put all the disc arrays into the storage ring and left the mansion with Su Mingyang to meet Wu Tai in the city lord's mansion. Lord Wu, I have already engraved the 18 disc arrays. As long as they are buried in the corresponding places in Taishan City, it will form a city protection array that can resist heavenly beings. When Qin Shujian saw Wu Tai, he went straight to the point. Hearing this, Wu Tai was overjoyed and said with a smile, "What other help does Grandmaster Qin need? I don't need much help, but there is one thing you must pay attention to, and that is, the location of the disc arrays must be hidden and no one knows, or it must be heavily guarded and no one can get close." Qin Shujian said solemnly, "With the disc arrays, there is no need to worry about the array. If the disc arrays are missing, I don't need to tell you the consequences, Lord Wu, you should know." Chapter 327. Placing the disc array. It wasn't just about finding a random place to bury it. It had to be placed in a specific location. Otherwise, the array wouldn't be able to unleash its full power. In order to prevent others from knowing the location of the disc array, this time, only Qin Shujian was responsible for burying the disc array. Other than Wu Tai, there was no third person in Taishan City who knew the location of the disc array. Similarly, Qin Shujian also left a copy of how to activate the disc array for Wu Tai. If someone took over Taishan City in the future, they would also inherit the 18 square disc array, leaving a set of powerful spiritual artifacts for the imperial court. Qin Shujian didn't think there was anything wrong with it. After all, the materials, they were all provided by the imperial court. He was only responsible for refining them. After all, he was invited to deal with Gu Chongqing. The corresponding defense array was also part of the mission. On the other side, after the army entered Taishan City, they began to stabilize the situation in the city. At night, inside the governor's mansion, several generals led by Wu Tai, as well as Qin Shujian, the formation grandmaster who accompanied the army, had already convened another meeting. Tomorrow, the army will assemble at 3 in the morning. We will depart at 5 in the morning. I want to take down Yongfeng City before noon. A sand table was placed in the middle of the main hall. Wu Tai came to the sand table, pointed at the city in front, and said in a deep voice, Yongfeng City. It was the city under Gu Chongqing's control. Originally, it was just a medium-sized city like Taishan City. However, as the Thousand Mountains Mansion was divided into two, Yongfeng City instantly became the front line of the two armies, just like Taishan City. As far as I know, Yongfeng City has 200,000 soldiers. Originally, there were only 2 god martial arts realm cultivators. However, now that the Demon Clan has intervened, the number of top experts is immeasurable. After Wu Tai spoke, a middle-aged general said, with our current manpower, it won't be difficult to take down Yongfeng City before noon if the Demon Clan doesn't intervene. However, if the Demon Clan experts intervene, I'm afraid things won't be so smooth. At the mention of the Demon Clan, the others' expressions turned solemn. The biggest variable now was the Demon Clan. No one could be sure how much power the Demon Clan had in Thousand Mountains Mansion. Wu Tai sneered. It's fine if those monster race bastards don't come, but if they do, I'll make sure they don't return. Could it be that Lord Wu has made some preparations? The matter of the Demon Clan has already reached the Imperial Court. No matter what happens in Thousand Mountains Prefecture, the Demon Clan has no right to interfere. Hearing this, many people's expressions changed slightly. It was sent to the Imperial Court. Could it be that the Run Huang had been alerted? However, their status was far inferior to Wu Tai's. There were some things that Wu Tai could know that they were not qualified to know. If Wu Tai didn't say anything, the others didn't ask too much. However, when the other party mentioned the Imperial Court, it was like a calming pill that gave them a lot of confidence. In their opinion, as long as the Imperial Court took this matter seriously, it would be fine. Then, no matter how strong the demon race was, they would not have the chance to cause any trouble. At this moment, a whistling arrow pierced through the sky, causing Wu Tai and the others' expressions to change. Then, without any hesitation, they rushed out of the city lord's mansion. When they looked at the distant sky, they saw a red firework blooming. The red fireworks were like lotus flowers, especially dazzling in the dark night sky. The enemy is attacking. Everyone, be alert. Without waiting for Wu Tai to speak, the generals on both sides immediately gave the order. Soon, the orders were passed down. The defenders who had been resting immediately got up and rushed to the 4 city walls. At the same time, without needing Wu Tai's instructions, Qin Shujian had already activated the array disk. 18 array disks buried deep in the ground were connected, and a protective shield that covered Taishan City directly appeared in front of everyone. This is the Great City Protection Array. The others, who were originally a little panicked because of the firework alert and the momentum of the army mobilization, were relieved when they saw the protective shield above their heads. As for the players in Taishan City, their faces were filled with helplessness. They're fighting again. Are they done yet? How long has it been? Are they going to start a war again? For them, starting a war would not benefit them at all. During the battle yesterday, Zhu Dongyi did not give them any missions at all. As a result, the players in the city did not take advantage of this opportunity to gain a wave of experience points. Moreover, they were inadvertently killed by the enemy who rushed into the city. Every time they died, that was a drop of 1 level. They really could not afford to lose. However, compared to the tired hearts of the players in Taishan City, the other players who had followed the army to Taishan City after accepting the mission were somewhat eager to give it a try. If they wanted to complete the mission, they had to kill the enemy. Just looking at the generous rewards on the mission made these players excited. Otherwise, they would not travel with the army. On the other side, a large number of troops were galloping forward. The moment the firework bloomed, Guotong knew that his plan to sneak attack this time was going to fail. However, the army was about to reach Taishan City, and there was absolutely no reason to retreat. More importantly, The great city protection array of Taishan City had been broken, and all the experts in the city had been killed. Now, even if Yin Saija sent people to take over Taishan City, it would be difficult to restore the level of defense in a short period of time. According to the information he had gathered, at this moment, the army in Taishan City was at most about 400,000. The number of people on their side was not much less than the enemy. The combat power of the high-level experts was even higher than that of the imperial court. Even if they were to fight head-on, they would not be at a disadvantage. It was also because of these various advantages. Guotong dared to still rush towards Taishan City under the premise of his whereabouts being discovered. Although the original army had a large number of people. However, in order to reduce the movement, they had deliberately lowered their voices and closed in on all sides, trying to reduce the possibility of being discovered. But now, they had been discovered in advance. Then, there was no need for the army to hide. Suddenly, the army rushed forward like thunder. Even though they were far away, standing on the city wall, they could still feel the buzzing coming from afar. At the same time, the spy sent by Wu Tai also immediately returned to report. Reporting to my lord, there are armies coming from all 4 directions. The total number of people is no less than 200,000. They are now heading towards Taishan City. Do you know who the leader is? There are too many people. I can't see clearly. Retreat. Guotong waved his hand, his eyes full of coldness. An army of no less than 200,000. At this moment, the night was dark. In addition, the army had a large number of people and occupied a vast area. Even if a cultivator had night vision, it would still be affected, resulting in a wrong judgment. In that case, an army of no less than 200,000 people, with at least 300,000 people. With this thought in mind, Wu Tai sneered and said, an army of at least 300,000 people. I'm afraid this isn't just the army of Yongfeng City. These rebels won't give up Taishan City so easily. So, this is their backup plan. If the army had come half a day earlier, he might have found it troublesome. However, now that the city protection formation had been successfully set up, and Qin Shujian was secretly following the army this time, not many people knew his identity. Gu Chongqing's people would never have thought that an array master was in Taishan City. After all, this time, the imperial court's army had divided quite a lot. However, there were only 2 array Dao Grandmasters, which meant that there would only be 1 or 2 array Dao Grandmasters in the army. In that case, there was a lot of uncertainty. At this moment, Qin Shujian said, Lord Wu, I see that there are many mutants in Taishan City. These mutants aren't afraid of death. They only care about the benefits in front of them. Why don't we issue a corresponding mission and let them charge and break through the enemy lines? This way, we can reduce a lot of casualties. Hearing this, Wu Tai nodded and said, Master Qin, you're right. If it weren't for Qin Shujian's reminder, he would have almost forgotten about the existence of the mutants. In the end, there were too many players at this stage. In addition, Wu Tai wasn't very familiar with commanding the players. He would often ignore the existence of these people. However, Qin Shujian was different. For him, even if he ignored the heavenly cultivators, he couldn't ignore the existence of the players. After all, he wasn't the one paying to issue the mission. Wu Tai would do these things. Qin Shujian was just casually saying a few words. There was no loss to him. Just as Wu Tai was issuing the mission, all the players in Taishan City were stunned. They looked at the mission in their minds and their faces were filled with excitement. Mission: City Protection Battle. Mission details. Today, the enemy is attacking Taishan City. As a member of Taishan City, you should fight and kill the enemy for the country. Kill all the invaders. Mission requirement: kill the enemy. Mission completion: 0 mission reward. A lot of experience points, a lot of merit points. Mission failure: no punishment. After seeing the specific requirements of the mission, these players were all excited. Experience points, merit points. Compared to the former, the latter was even more exciting. The merit points in the army were similar to the contribution points in the sect. They could be exchanged for many precious items. In addition, merit points had another important use. That was, exchange for official positions. Once they exchanged for official positions, it meant that the players had officially joined the imperial court. Moreover, they could control a lot of NPCs. This way, in the future, when they killed enemies and leveled up, their speed would definitely be much faster than other players. After all, when the NPCs under their command killed the enemy, as a general, the players could also get a corresponding commission of experience points. This was for them. It was simply an irresistible temptation. Many players were against the rise of war. It wasn't because they were afraid of war, but because the war didn't trigger any missions. This way, the rewards they could get would be much less. Moreover, there was a high probability that they would lose money. However, things were different now. After Wu Tai issued this quest, the players in Taishan City were riled up. For a time, the players in the city were agitated, and this change had indirectly increased the morale of the city's defenders. At this time, the rebel army had also arrived not far from Taishan City. Looking at the large array that covered the entire city, Guotong couldn't help but wipe his eyes. He almost thought that he was seeing things. Chapter 328. Isn't the Great City Barrier Formation broken? Why is there still a Great City Barrier Formation in Taishan City? Guotong's expression suddenly became serious. The Great City Barrier Formation was generally divided into two types. One was to prevent experts from flying into the city, and the other was to completely seal off the entire city. Whenever there was a war, usually the first type was used. Once the second type was used, it would be the last battle. In this way, the Great City Barrier Formation was strong, but the attacks it had to withstand were also many times more. No matter how strong the formation was, there was a limit to the power it could withstand. Once the limit was exceeded, the formation would break. But no matter what, an undamaged city-protecting formation was a tricky matter for anyone. Moreover, the reappearance of the broken Great City Barrier Formation meant that someone had repaired it. To be able to do it in just one day. To repair the formation as good as new. Guotong immediately thought of the two Array Dao Grandmasters who were capable of doing this. As for Qingming Emissary and the Black Abyss Emissary, although he couldn't see their faces clearly, he could guess that they didn't look too good. The Great City Barrier Formation has been repaired. There is a high probability that there is an Array Master in Taishan City. Do the two emissaries have the confidence to deal with an Array Master? Guotong looked at the two and asked in a deep voice. As soon as he finished speaking, the scene was silent for a while. Finally, Qingming Emissary said, "Although the Array Master is strong, we may be able to deal with him. Besides, it's too late to retreat now." Hearing this, Guotong looked at Taishan City in front of him. At this moment, the city gates were already open, and a large number of soldiers were pouring out. He understood what the other party meant. At this moment, the army was still 100 feet away from Taishan City. But it would not be easy for such a large army to retreat. If they left their backs to the enemy, not only would this sneak attack fail, but they might also suffer heavy losses. On the other side, Wu Tai had already led his troops out of the city. He was not Zhu Dongyi, and the troops in his hands were not the original troops of Taishan City. Facing the attack of the rebels, he didn't need to put up a defensive posture immediately. On the city wall, Wu Tai looked at the army in front of him and said to Qin Shujian, "Grandmaster Qin, please hold the fort in the city. If anything happens to our army, please help us immediately." "I understand." Qin Shujian nodded. Although the densely packed army below was a massive source of life in his eyes, he also knew that marching and fighting a war was not a matter of one person. Even if he was an array formation master, once the formation was completed, it would be comparable to a diviner cultivator. However, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers were not to be trifled with either. Until now, Qin Shujian did not forget that the 10,000 elites of the Chaos Blood Army under Marquis Baiyun had stopped the Six Desires Demon Lord, who was at the heavenly being level. The art of military formations was unfathomable. Although it was related to the word array, it was completely different from the traditional meaning of array Dao. On the other side, after giving some instructions, Wu Tai rose into the air and landed on the back of a large demonic beast at the front of the army. Immediately, He looked at the incoming enemy and cried out in a stern voice, "Who is leading the army? Do you dare to state your name?" His voice was like a great bell that directly covered all other sounds. At this moment, the enemy also stopped 700 feet away from Taishan City, about 200 feet away from the Imperial Army. Hearing this, Guotong immediately urged the demonic beast forward, looked at Wu Tai coldly, and responded, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be Wu Tai. Haha, so it's you. I didn't expect that you would dare to appear in front of me. You really don't know what's good for you." The moment he saw Guotong, Wu Tai also recognized him and immediately sneered. From Marquis Qinshan's rebellion until now, the two sides had already fought countless times. As a general under Marquis Qinshan, Guotong naturally had fought with Wu Tai several times. However, compared to Wu Tai, Guotong was still a little weaker. After several battles, he had lost but never won. Hearing this, Guotong's face became colder. "You just took advantage of me a few days ago. This time, I'll let you have a taste of my power." After saying this, he was too lazy to talk too much nonsense with Wu Tai. He immediately waved his hand and ordered, "Kill." As the order was given, the infantry moved forward steadily. The army continued to advance, shortening the distance between the two sides. At the same time, Wu Tai also waved his hand and immediately led the troops to charge. The soldiers of both sides were like a torrent, instantly fighting together. Boom! Wu Tai took a step into the air, and immediately a long spear appeared in his hand. The next moment, he charged towards Guotong. To this, Guotong was not afraid at all. He also rose into the air and raised his saber to meet the attack. In an instant, vast waves swept out like a wave. The blood of the army below was like smoke rising into the sky. Groups of army formations were formed. The blood condensed into a huge army spirit, and it had already started a bloody battle. On the city wall, Qin Shujian looked at the scene of the army charging below and was quite shocked. It was the first time he saw such a large number of troops fighting. Compared to what he learned in his previous life, the knowledge about marching and fighting was not very useful in this world. Because of the experts here, they could easily fly into the sky and split the mountains and the earth with a wave of their hands. In a head-on battle, there was no strategy to speak of. It was a battle of who was stronger and who had more trump cards. At this moment, as Wu Tai attacked, the armies on the other three sides of the city wall also charged together. Compared to the army of the rebels, in addition to their own soldiers, the imperial court also had a large number of players mixed in with them. These players did not understand the combination of military formations. When the two sides fought, they were more like assassins on the battlefield. They specifically targeted the weaker ones and immediately retreated after hitting them. They would not stay for even half a second. Chaotic. Very chaotic. The blood of the soldiers was like smoke rising into the sky. The two armies fought outside the city, and the total number of soldiers was close to 1 million. Once one was deeply involved, there was no chance to care about who was who. Boom! The energy spear shattered the sky. Guotong suddenly fell to the ground. The palm of his hand holding the saber was cracked. He had already lost. As for Wu Tai, he held the long spear in his hand and directly pressed down on the ground. His aura was like a rainbow as he chased after Guotong. They were both in the god martial arts realm. Wu Tai's strength was much, much higher than Guotong's. The battle had only been 15 minutes. Guotong was about to lose. Seeing that Wu Tai had already chased after him, Guotong immediately shouted angrily, "What are you waiting for? If I die, don't think you'll have an easy time." As he shouted angrily, the vital essence in his body instantly erupted. Holding the saber with both hands, he immediately slashed at Wu Tai. The saber slashed out. The energy saber was like a biting cold light, swallowing everything around it. Facing this saber, Wu Tai's expression was solemn. The long spear in his hand did not stop attacking, charging toward the opponent. Guotong did not care about one person, but the other person's words just now made his heart tremble. The other party still had a backup plan. In just a moment, Wu Tai thought of the monster clan. Just as his thoughts were turning, the long spear had already collided with the energy saber. A terrifying power erupted from the tip of the spear, shattering the energy saber in an instant. As the spear flickered, the remaining force of the attack continued toward Guotong. It was also at this moment, two ghostly figures suddenly appeared. Then, two palm prints were seen, and a terrifying power erupted in an instant. At this moment, a terrifying power surged from Wu Tai's heart. Without the slightest hesitation, he also urged his strength to the limit. The long spear transformed into 81 spear shadows. In the end, they turned into a shocking cold light that shot out and bombarded the two terrifying forces. Boom! A powerful aura erupted. Wu Tai's body was immediately sent flying backwards. Under the impact of this powerful force, his internal organs were faintly shaken to a great extent. The sudden change happened too quickly. By the time Qin Shujian reacted, he immediately saw Wu Tai flying horizontally. Two people in black robes and hoods appeared out of nowhere and charged toward him. Robes and hoods. After seeing the two people's attire, Qin Shujian immediately associated them with their identities. The Monster Clan. And they were the Monster Clan experts who once broke the great city defense formation of Taishan City with one blow. According to his calculations, to be able to do this, they must be at the peak of the God Martial Realm. There was no hesitation. Qin Shujian immediately said, "Master Su, go and help Wu Tai." As soon as he finished speaking, without waiting for Su Mingyang to speak, he had already taken a step into the air. With a wave of his hand, a small formation appeared and enveloped one of the Monster Clan experts. Before determining whether the other party was a diviner, Qin Shujian didn't dare to be careless and fought one against two. With his current comprehensive strength, dealing with one diviner was no problem, but if he had to deal with two, it would be a little difficult. As for Wu Tai's strength, he was not weak. Knowing that there was a Monster Clan expert suspected to be a diviner, he still dared to openly attack. He must have his own trump card. In addition, Su Mingyang was not weak, a God Martial Realm great cultivator. With the two of them working together, dealing with a Monster Clan expert should not be a problem. On the other side, the envoy of the Black Abyss wanted to take this opportunity to kill Wu Tai, but he felt a terrible murderous intent surging in the surrounding space. When he looked again, the scene around him had changed. There was no army fighting. There were no stars, sun, or moon. There was only nothingness. After being stunned for a moment, the envoy of the Black Abyss immediately reacted and said coldly, "Formation." Without him noticing anything, he was directly trapped in the formation. Someone who could do this. Only a formation grandmaster could do it. Mingjing Mountain? Or Qin Shujian? These two names flashed through the mind of the envoy of the Black Abyss, but he quickly put them to the back of his mind. No matter who it was, it didn't matter to him. What mattered was, right now, he was trapped by the formation of a formation grandmaster. The next moment, the space and the nothingness trembled, an endless saber chi swept and strangled like chaotic blades, occupying the entire space. Chapter 329. Black energy spread out and turned into an indestructible shield, protecting the envoy of the Black Abyss inside. The next moment, endless blade chi swept across and collided with the black shield. The shield shook violently and looked like it would shatter at any time. He didn't dare to hesitate. The envoy of the Black Abyss took a step forward. The void seemed to bear a terrifying force, rippling under his feet, and the aftermath of the destruction spread out. Then, he punched, and the void exploded. Boom! A power that far surpassed that of an ordinary divine martial realm cultivator swept out in all directions, causing the entire formation to tremble. Although the formation shook, it didn't shatter directly. Seeing this, the envoy of the Black Abyss didn't stop attacking. He aimed at one point in the void, and all his attacks fell on it. After a dozen punches, the accumulated power suddenly exploded like a dormant volcano. When the power erupted, a large number of formation patterns appeared in the void, and then shattered inch by inch in the eyes of the envoy of the Black Abyss. The formation patterns shattered. It was equivalent to the formation breaking. The envoy of the Black Abyss stood proudly in the void, looking at the destruction of the void inch by inch, and sneered. You want to trap me with a small formation? What wishful thinking! Although a formation grandmaster was strong, but how could a formation that had been set up in the blink of an eye be able to trap him? He was not a divinity, but he was only one step away from becoming a divinity. When the formation broke, the envoy of the Black Abyss had already seen Qin Shujian standing in the air. He said coldly, "You're the formation grandmaster of Bayun Mansion, right? You still have the guts to stand in front of me when the formation is broken. It seems that I'm destined to kill a formation grandmaster today." A formation grandmaster without the protection of a formation. The threat factor plummeted. As soon as he finished speaking, the envoy of the Black Abyss immediately took a step forward, wanting to cross over to Qin Shujian. But as soon as he took a step, the scene in front of him changed again. When he looked again, the surroundings had become the scene of nothingness just now. The face of the envoy of the Black Abyss was a little dark under the hood. Another array formation. It was another F*King array. The next moment, as the killing intent of the array descended, Black Gang Chi propped up. The Black Abyss used all its strength to bombard a certain node of the array, just like before, causing the power to exceed the limit of what the array could withstand, breaking the array in an instant. That's pretty fast. Qin Shujian raised his eyebrows and praised when he saw the envoy of the Black Abyss come out of the formation in less than 15 minutes. But before the messenger of the Black Abyss could speak, with a wave of his hand, another formation enveloped the Black Abyss emissary. Inside the formation, the Black Abyss emissary looked at the once familiar void and suddenly understood why formation grandmasters were so feared. Just this method of forming an array with a wave of his hand. This was already beyond the comprehension of others. To put it bluntly, this method was no different from a hooligan's. Outside the formation, silently, Qin Shujian swallowed a vitality pill and recovered his exhausted spirit will. Then, with a thought, a series of runes appeared in his hands and were engraved in the void. If one looked carefully, one could see. At this moment, Qin Shujian was also in a void, setting up an array within a formation. This was the method of an array within an array. One had to ensure that the two arrays would not clash with each other. This required a very strong control over one's spiritual will. Only an array formation grandmaster could do this. From the outside, since Qin Shujian stepped off the city wall, he and the envoy of the Black Abyss disappeared from everyone's sight. Bang! The inner formation shattered again. This time, before the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary could react, another formation enveloped him. This was the barbaric method of a formation grandmaster. As long as one had enough divine will, or rather, if the opponent could not break the array in one strike, then they would be trapped in one array after another. Within the range of the array, the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary was completely mad. Until now, the array had completely abandoned the attribute of a killing array and only retained the attribute of a trapping array. This way, there was naturally no danger within the array, but correspondingly, the difficulty of breaking out of the array directly increased by a lot. Qin, book, sword. The envoy of the Black Abyss emissary gritted his teeth. He swore that when the opponent's divine will was exhausted, he would tear him into pieces. At this moment, the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary no longer held back. A bunch of dense light appeared in his hand. Then he waved his hand and threw it out. The moment the dense light left his palm, it turned into a rainbow light and shot out, instantly occupying the entire void. Boom! With just one strike, the array was broken. Then, the rainbow light rolled back and turned into a bunch of dense light again, stopping in the hands of the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary. But, compared to before, the dense light was obviously weaker. Seeing this, the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary felt a little heartache. This was a treasure that he painstakingly refined and then nurtured for thousands of years. Every time he used it, it would be less. But this time, after the array was broken, no other array covered the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary. But looking at the surrounding void, he knew in his heart that he was still in an array. But the difference was, Now, in addition to him, there was also Qin Shujian in the array. Looking at the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary in front of him, Qin Shujian also clapped his hands and praised with a smile. As expected of a Monster Clan expert, your means are really amazing. The array that I set up is broken just like that. Amazing, amazing. To be honest. Now, he was completely sure that even if the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary was not a diviner, he was definitely not far off. Especially the rainbow light that just broke the array. It had reached the diviner level of attack. Or else, it was very difficult to break the array with a single blow. Qin Shujian's calm attitude made the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary frown. A cold voice came from the hood. I'm very curious. Where exactly did you get the confidence to stand in front of me? Is it with the strength of the spirit martial realm? Or is it with the means of a formation master? You'll know when you try. You're courting death. Being provoked, the envoy of the Black Abyss emissary's heart was already full of killing intent. Now, he directly exploded. In an instant, the dense light in his hand shot out. Thousands of rainbow lights seemed to cut through the sky and directly covered Qin Shujian. Looking at the rainbow lights coming toward him, Qin Shujian waved his hand and activated the array that had been set up long ago. Boom! In an instant, stars shift. Heaven and earth turned upside down. From the outside world's perspective, it was just the void trembling, as if something was being born from within. In an instant, the array that covered the two at first exploded. Thousands of broken runes flickered and invisible waves swept in all directions. The sudden change, it immediately attracted the attention of many people. But when they looked at the void, except for the disappearance of the broken runes, nothing else appeared. Whether it was Qin Shujian or the envoy of the Black Abyss, neither of them showed themselves. Qingming emissary, who was originally fighting with Wu Tai and Su Mingyang, felt a little dignified at this moment. No one knew the strength of the envoy of the Black Abyss better than him. But so much time had passed. The other party had not broken out of the array, so the situation must be bad. Seeing this, Qingming emissary wanted to help, but unfortunately, Wu Tai's strength was not bad. Although he was not worse than him, he had reached the peak of the divine martial realm. And the other Su Mingyang's strength was also not ordinary. He was not much worse than Wu Tai. When two great cultivators at the peak of the divine martial realm joined forces, even a great cultivator like him who was half a step away from the celestial being realm would find it difficult to take them down in a short time. After all, half a step away from the celestial being realm. They were not real celestial beings after all. Half a step away. The difference was like heaven and earth. I didn't want to use too many means, but since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for not being polite. Qingming emissary's face turned cold under the hood, and a powerful energy burst out, forcing Wu Tai and Su Mingyang to retreat. Then, as if he had released something, the phantom of a giant ape appeared in the void, and a tyrannical and terrifying aura instantly swept out in all directions. Then, the moment the illusory figure appeared, it collapsed and disappeared. It turned into a destructive force and blasted toward the two of them. Wherever the destructive force passed, the void was distorted. Celestial being strike. When they felt this destructive force, both Wu Tai and Su Mingyang's faces changed. Celestial being strike. And it was definitely not an ordinary celestial being expert. With such a terrifying burst of power, it was at least an expert of the 5th tier of the celestial being realm. Even, it was not necessarily an existence of the almighty being level. Under the cover of this force, the shadow of death spread in the hearts of the two. Then, Wu Tai crushed something in his hand, and a stone sword shadow appeared in the void. The ancient aura of the stone sword, which seemed to have existed since ancient times, instantly spread out in a mighty manner. Everyone who felt this force felt as if they had encountered a supreme existence, and they could not help but want to submit to it. Then, Wu Tai bowed to the phantom of the stone sword. The subject of the great Zhao invites Zhu Bing to kill the demon. Then, the sword slashed. The destructive force was shattered the moment it met the phantom of the ancient sword, and the remaining force of the attack continued toward Qingming emissary. Zhu Bing's phantom, You actually brought a trace of the power of Zhu Bing from the Great Zhao. Qingming emissary seemed to have gone crazy. The moment he was locked on by Zhu Bing's phantom, he already felt endless death. In other words, with his current strength, he could not block the attack of Zhu Bing's phantom. Even if he had the celestial being strike first, it was still the same. He did not dare to hesitate at all. Qingming emissary crushed another jade stone, and suddenly a destructive force that was not weaker than the previous one erupted in an instant and collided with Zhu Bing's phantom again. Two consecutive celestial powers collided with Zhu Bing's phantom. Finally, the power of Zhu Bing's phantom weakened a lot. However, the attack still did not stop. After exhausting 2 David decrees in a row, emissary Qingming no longer had any other trump cards to speak of. Looking at the incoming ancestral weapon phantoms, he instantly evaporated all of his true yuan and transformed it into a powerful barrier to protect himself. Boom! Chapter 330. The Earth Energy Shattered. The black robe split open. Qingming emissary's body fell down like a cannonball. It was a terrifying impact. The ground shook violently, and a deep hole suddenly appeared on the ground. At this moment, the black robe had been shattered, revealing the appearance of Qingming emissary. She had long green hair, clear eyes, and thin red lips. She was like a stunner. Coupled with the green robe, she was even more attractive. Beautiful. Very beautiful. No one expected that the person under the black robe would be a stunningly beautiful woman. The difference was, there was a deep sword wound on the woman's body. Dark green blood was gushing out from the wound. Her beautiful face was pale and unsightly. She had been seriously injured. However, no matter how beautiful she was, it had no effect on Wu Tai and Su Mingyang. They had cultivated for hundreds and thousands of years. They had seen all kinds of beauties. As time went by, everything would eventually turn into a pink skeleton. There was nothing to be nostalgic about. More importantly, the other party was from the demon clan, who knew what her original body was before she transformed. Therefore, seeing that Qingming emissary was seriously injured, Wu Tai directly stepped forward and the long spear in his hand was already charging toward the other party. A half-step celestial being expert. If she died here, even the demon clan would be heartbroken for a long time. Everything happened too fast. From the appearance of the heaven-reaching giant ape to the appearance of the ancestral armament, everything happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. The collision of powerful attacks caused the hearts of everyone present to tremble. As for Guotong, he was not qualified to intervene at all. Whether it was Wu Tai or Qingming emissary, their strength was not something he could compete with. He might not even be able to defeat Su Mingyang. Such a gap in strength, it made him, the general on the surface, a little embarrassed. But there was no other way. After all, there were not many experts under Marquis Qianshan. Moreover, the great cultivators of the god martial arts realm were not weak at all. However, Guotong was facing Wu Tai and the others. Among other things, Su Mingyang alone was one of the 4 great masters of the Baiyun Marquis Mansion. His strength could not be underestimated. At this moment, Wu Tai's attack had arrived. Qingming emissary suddenly rose from the deep pit and completely burned the vital essence in her body to take this move head-on. Boom! His Zhun Yuan shattered, and Qingming emissary's body was pierced through by the long spear. However, the powerful shockwave still forced Wu Tai back. His chest was pierced through. Qingming emissary let out a painful scream, but her body did not stop at all. Taking advantage of the momentum of the 2 sides separating, she immediately flew back. An elite half a step into the celestial being realm. If he was bent on escaping, it would be difficult to stop him. Besides, Wu Tai looked at the army that was still fighting below. Compared to the severely injured Green Abyss emissary, the current battle was more worthy of his attention. As Qingming emissary retreated, the pressure on Guotong's side was much greater. Meanwhile, inside the formation, the Black Abyss was not in a good state either. Qin Shujian used the time to set up a complete Grandmaster level formation after trapping the other party with formations one after another. 10% of the formation was complete. In the blink of an eye, the stars had shifted. With the 1,000 blood as the eye of the formation, the might of the three-seal Tao artifact was comparable to that of a Deva Grand Cultivator. The blade trembled slightly. Endless blade chi swept across the formation. Compared to the previous formation, the blade chi that appeared now could easily cut through the protective chi of a god martial arts realm cultivator. The Black Abyss emissary did not bother to hide anything at this moment. His back arched high, and then 2 lumps of flesh appeared. The next moment, the lumps of flesh shattered. They turned into a pair of huge wings that were dozens of feet long. The silver-white feathers were as hard as steel and shone with a frightening cold light. Boom! The wings flapped, and the feathers broke free. They collided with the blade chi and instantly pierced through the endless blade chi. Then, the Black Abyss emissary flapped his wings and disappeared on the spot. The next second, he was already in front of Qin Shujian. His palms had turned into sharp claws. His fingers were like hooks that could easily distort the void. Die! The Black Abyss emissary's eyes were cold. The moment he exposed his demonic characteristics, it was destined that the other party had no chance of survival. Qin Shujian's eyes were cold as he faced the incoming sharp claws. You really are a demon clan. Facing this terrifying attack, he did not dodge. A 4th-grade golden lotus bloomed, and a golden shield was erected. It collided with the Black Abyss emissary's attack. A 4th-grade golden lotus. A top-notch 2-seal Tao artifact. Even in the face of the heavenly decree, the 4th-grade golden lotus could still hold on for a while. The two collided. When the shield shattered, the Black Abyss emissary was also forced to retreat. At the same time, the 1,000 blood that was suspended in the air swayed gently. Thousands of blade chi bombarded down, directly covering the Black Abyss emissary. Then, Qin Shujian took a step into the air and directly occupied a star in the sky. With a thought, the stars in the sky swayed together, and starlight poured down like pillars. Every ray of bright starlight made people unable to help but be immersed in this beautiful scene. However, behind the bright and attractive starlight was a terrifying murderous intent. Just as the starlight fell, the stars in the outside world emerged, and the power of the stars was attracted by the array. This scene was not noticed by many. After all, now that the battle had reached its climax, no one had the time to pay attention to these things. Inside the array, the Black Abyss emissary spread out the silver-white wings on his back, blocking out the thousands of blade chi. However, when the pillar-like starlight fell, the wings trembled violently and feathers scattered. At this moment, the black robe was torn apart and a huge silver eagle appeared. Its shocking roar caused sound waves to roll. Its hook-like claws easily shattered the saber chi. It flapped its wings wildly, dodging the attacks of the starlight. However, starlight shone in the array. No matter how fast the silver eagle was, it could not completely avoid it. Soon, another ray of starlight fell, heavily hitting the left wing. This time, the wing could no longer withstand the starlight attack and was immediately pierced by the terrifying power. The power spread in the wound, gradually corroding the surrounding flesh. As for Qin Shujian, now, like a god, he was above the stars, looking down at the fleeing silver eagle. With a wave of his hand, the stars swayed, and the pillar-like starlight bombarded down. It was also at this moment he suddenly felt something strange in the storage ring in his hand, as if it was a little hot. However, at the critical moment of setting up the array to kill the emissary of the Black Abyss, Qin Shujian did not have time to care about the strange movement of the storage ring. The pillar of stars fell. Feathers flew. The silver eagle finally could not withstand such a terrifying attack, and had fallen into a state of serious injury. Its body was full of holes from the starlight bombardment. If it were not for the strong vitality of the demon race, it would have died. Seeing this, Qin Shujian did not use the stars to bombard it. Instead, he used his mind to ignite the endless hellfire of King Ming. The hellfire of King Ming surged. In an instant, it swallowed the emissary of the Black Abyss. What kind of flame is this? No, The moment the hellfire of King Ming enveloped him, the emissary of the black abyss felt as if his soul was placed in magma. The terrifying heat and intense pain made his entire body unable to bear it, and he let out a cry of pain. As for the powerful body of a half-step celestial being, it was completely useless under the burning of the hellfire of King Ming. Blood evaporated. Feathers turned into ashes. The emissary of the black abyss felt that his soul had reached a limit. If this continued, he would definitely turn into ashes, and he would not even have the chance to reincarnate. The intense fear of death. He did not have time to think about anything else. He even abandoned his dignity as one of the 12 emissaries and begged for mercy. "Let me go. I am willing to submit to you and be at your beck and call. I am a half-step celestial being. I will be of great use in the future. Let me go." Under the burning of the hellfire of King Ming, the emissary of the black abyss frantically begged for mercy. Above the stars, Qin Shujian, on the other hand, looked on coldly. Indeed, he was tempted by the emissary of the black abyss. If he could command a half-step celestial being of the demon clan, it would mean that he would have an extremely terrifying combat power in his hands. Half-step celestial being. No matter where he was, he would be a terrifying expert. As long as the celestial being did not appear, not many people could be on par with him. However, Qin Shujian was very clear about one thing. He was not confident that he could restrain a half-step, celestial being expert. If the emissary rebelled, it would be difficult to keep him in check. Besides that, there was another crucial point. That was, the two armies were fighting outside the array. The emissary of the Black Abyss wanted another expert of the Demon Clan. If he directly subdued the emissary, it was hard to guarantee that the Imperial Court would not have any ideas. If he did not handle it well, he would get himself into trouble. Due to various reasons, Qin Shujian looked indifferently at the emissary of the Black Abyss, who was in the hellfire of King Ming, and did not waver no matter how the emissary begged for mercy. He also wanted to see, apart from dealing with connate spiritual beings and demons, was the hellfire of King Ming also useful to the Demon Clan? Of course, Qin Shujian did not want to use the hellfire of King Ming to burn the humans. He also felt disgusted to turn the humans into fire lotuses and devour them. Although they were just NPCs, they looked exactly the same. It was not a problem to kill them, but to devour them was a little disgusting. Anyway, there were so many demons. There were also many demons. Of all the things he could devour, there was no need for him to target the humans. Moreover, once these things spread out, he would become the target of public criticism sooner or later. By then, even if he was a formation master comparable to a celestial being, he would not have a good ending. However, Qin Shujian was not sure whether the Demon Clan could absorb the energy of the hellfire of King Ming. Under his gaze, Yi Zichen smiled. The voice of the emissary of the Black Abyss was getting weaker and weaker. His flesh and blood had been burned by the hellfire of King Ming. Soon, the giant silver eagle had completely disappeared in the hellfire of King Ming. Then, the flames condensed and a fire lotus floated there quietly. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.